Hello guys, and welcome to another God of High School video. In this one, we're going to cover the World Competition Mega Arc. And given that this one is a hefty beast of a storyline, we decided to streamline things and start with the first two arcs within this huge storyline. Namely, we're going to tell you all about God of High School's Consolation match and pre-World Tournament arcs respectively. So, prepare for another bonkers high-octane ride with Mori and friends. Full spoilers are ahead for chapters 176 to 216 of the Manhwa. With that out of the way, let's bust this baby open. Welcome to the World Tournament. The World Tournament arc starts exactly where we left off, as we find Park Mujin right after he blasted Nox Priest Arangus with a blast of energy so devastating that has left a massive gaping sinkhole in the middle of the city above ground. Mujin has found himself trapped inside a cavern of his own making after the explosion, and he's honestly not too happy with himself, because to Mujin, it's humiliating that his current power levels are just barely enough to fend off a priest-level threat. In any case, Mujin walks away from Arangi, but the Nox Priest's hand suddenly wriggles from beneath the rubble he's trapped in. Mujin turns to see Arangi rising from the ground. And guess what? The Nox Priest still has some fight in him. At that moment, what appears as Arangi speaks to Mujin and expresses his amusement at meeting Park Mujin. That statement gives Mujin the idea that whoever is in front of him isn't actually Arangi anymore. It's someone else entirely. The creature possessing Arangi then chastises Mujin for not putting respect to their name before telling his enemy to worship them. Right after that, the creature finally introduces itself as none other than one of the high gods, Beelzebub. Hearing this only excites Mujin, however, and he instantly greets Beelzebub with a cracking blast that severs the high god's arms. But Beelzebub stays on his feet and asks Mujin if they've met before. Again, the high god reprimands Mujin for disobeying their gods, given that humanity only borrows power from these heavenly creatures. But then Mujin asks Beelzebub something back, about whether the gods will leave humans alone if they bury their heads and just lie low. The tables turn as Mujin makes Beelzebub realize how the gods are a bunch of dirty jerks, given how they've repeatedly tried to destroy humanity. To Mujin, it was understandable for the gods to do that back when humans were corrupted. But now, these so-called gods justify their atrocities for the slightest matters, whether it's humanity creating high towers, having a prosperous culture, or simply becoming strong. And what's worse is that the gods have the gall to call whatever atrocities they inflict as divine judgment. Beelzebub tries to mock Mujin after this, but he gets blown to bits before he could even finish a sentence when Mujin launches another energy blast. Beelzebub then completely leaves Arangi's body, telling Mujin that it's about time they call it a day. With the high god gone, Mujin tries to make his way out of the cavern. All the while, he wonders what Nox is planning to do with their plan of bringing about the advent of a god. Not only that, but Mujin thinks there was something fishy about that gemstone he saw earlier. These thoughts allow Mujin to become even more resolute in stopping both Nox and the creatures of the Heavenly Realm, and he plans to start it by getting his power back when he wins the God of High School Tournament. Somewhere else, Mira, Dewi, and Jin Mori's clone meet inside Mori's apartment. Mira can't help but get weirded out when she sees Mori's clone, who has now decided to take on the identity of Mori Huey. Huey offers his friend some tea before they discuss business, and Mira just gets even more weirded out when she looks at how glammed up Mori's room has become after Huey redecorated it. Moments later, Dewi asks Huey if he has made up his mind about the God of High School Tournament. Huey gives him an answer, but it's not the one they were expecting, as the clone tells both Mira and Dewi that he doesn't plan on participating in the upcoming event. Huey tells them that his reasoning behind this is that he doesn't trust Mujin Park one bit. Dewi then asks Huey what he's planning to do next, to which the clone says that he aims to either look for the original Jin Mori or rescue Jin Tai-jin. Mira thinks it's a bad idea, especially when you consider the fact that none of them can open the gate to the Sage Realm without Unyu's help. Mira basically tells Huey that, like it or not, he's going to need Mujin's help if he plans on doing either of those things. Ilpio, Beck, and Uma express their agreement as they arrive before Mira and Dewi can continue their conversation. Ilpio apologizes for their tardiness, telling the others that he and Beck had to talk about something in private before coming to their meeting. They continue their discussion, and Mira stresses the fact that Mujin is pretty much a necessary evil that they have to put up with if they plan on defeating Nox. Hearing this, Ilpio understands her point, but reminds everyone that there's no way in hell that they should completely trust Mujin. According to him, Mujin is the type of guy who only cares about achieving his goal by hook or by crook, which makes him just as dangerous as their old enemy Jagal Tech. Mira asks Ilpio if he has an alternative in mind, to which he replies that given the circumstances, their best move would be to keep working with Mujin, but carry on with their own plans separately. So, Ilpio suggests that Mira, Dewi, and Huey enter the God of High School Tournament while he and Beck look for the original Mori. Dewi asks how Ilpio plans on accomplishing this plan, to which the nine-tailed fox's vessel replies that he can use the fox's bead to locate Jin Mori from within the Sage Realm. Still, Huey reminds him that they still have another problem. Even if the bead could locate Mori, they still don't have a way to get back into the Sage Realm. Well, Uma has got them covered. as the Oxen King tells him that she knows a few spells that can open the gate. All Uma needs is a place to amplify her power so that she can properly cast these spells. Mira recalls the sacred place where Unyo opened the gates to the Sage Realm before and thinks that Uma can perform the ritual there too. Dewi thinks this plan has some potential but reminds the rest of his friends that it's not going to be a cakewalk. For one, the sacred place is currently occupied by the Nox. Then, there's also the issue of how time moves much slower in Oraguk, which means a lot of time will have passed in the human realm by the time they find Mori. However, Ilpio reassures them that's the same reason why he proposes that he and Beck go in there alone. Even more, he plans on using his sun shower technique as a signal for Mori, which would hopefully greatly shorten the time they need to spend within the Sage Realm. Mira thinks it's too risky, given that nobody knows what's happened after the world-shattering explosion in the Sage Realm, but Ilpio tells her that he's willing to bear that condition if it means they can save Mori. He then asks the clone what he thinks about all this. Huey agrees with Ilpio's plan, while Beck tells everyone how they'll go about this. Aside from entering the Sage Realm and rescuing Mori, Ilpio and Beck have also tasked themselves with retaking the sacred place from Nox. Again, Mira thinks it's a risky proposition, but she immediately realizes that her worries are misplaced when she's reminded that Ilpio and Beck possess the powers of the Nine-Tailed Fox and the Oxen King respectively. Moving their discussion towards the God of High School tournament now, Ilpio tells Mira that she's the new core of their team and that winning the whole thing will depend on her. That's because, first of all, Dewi has become significantly weakened due to losing his right eye. On the other hand, it's important for Mira's team to hide Huey's true power for fear that both Mujin and Nox might realize that he's not the real Jin Mori. On top of that, Ilpio surmises that most of the participants in this upcoming tournament would be Nox members. So, they'll probably target Huey, thinking that he's the real Jin Mori. As such, Mira is the only one within their team who has the power to distract their opponents. Hearing all of this, Mira asks Dewi if he's really become weaker than her, and he admits it. Still, Ilpio and Uma do their best to convince Mira that she's more than up to the task. According to Ilpo, Mira's fighting style is best suited for dealing with multiple opponents. On the other hand, Uma believes that Mira hasn't even unlocked her true potential. Mira remains reluctant of her skills, especially when she points out that anyone can participate in the Consolation match and that it's probably going to be full of priest-level participants. However, Ilpio tells her that's all the more reason to step up her game. If that's the case, Huey has to make sure that his secret doesn't come out. Ilpio then asks Huey about his overall power levels. The clone tells him that he can access anywhere from 5 to 60% of the real Jin Mori's powers on average. However, he can push himself and be as strong as the original, but he can only do that for about 4 to 5 minutes at a time. Beck asks Huey if his powers are enough to defeat a bishop, and the clone tells him that it isn't. Ilpio realizes that this is going to be a problem if even a handful of priests decide to gang up on him. To make matters worse, Huey adds that there's another condition to his powers. It depends on his distance from the real Jin Mori. Simply put, the closer Huey is to the original, the stronger he can become. So there's a chance that he might even become weaker as time goes by, given they have no idea where the real Mori is right now. Huey adds that he needs around 3 to 4 hours of rest every time he spends his energy. With all this information, Ilpio thinks that they should stick to their plan. That is to say, Mira will be the leader of their team, Dewi will provide backup, while they do their best to keep Huey hidden. However, Beck suggests that Huey should step out and join the fight if ever they face an enemy they can't handle easily. Otherwise, Mujin and Nox might sniff out the truth that Huey's not the original Mori. Beck thinks that it's their top priority to keep Huey's real identity a secret from Nox for fear that their organization might immediately mount a counterattack against them and Mujin if they find out about the truth. With all that in mind, Ilpio stresses the fact that Mira has to up her game, especially considering that she has the most potential among the three of them. All she needs to do right now is to have faith in herself. Later, Mira calls Mujin to inform him that she and her team will participate in the tournament. Mujin reminds him that it's going to be an extremely dangerous contest, but Mira tells him they're well prepared to face whatever's coming. But Mira makes Mujin promise one thing, that he'll save Jin Tai-jin. Mujin then asks Mira to put him on the loudspeaker and he apologizes for failing to do that earlier. He also congratulates the three for helping break the God-killing seal back at the Sage Realm. He even apologizes to Dewi for what happened to his right eye. Hearing this, Dewi can only hope that Mujin is telling the truth, to which he says that he is. After their phone call, Mujin orders Judge P to use her marionettes to spy on Mori. According to him, it's super shady that the boy has just obediently agreed to join the God of High School tournament. So he thinks Mira and her team are hiding something from him. Somewhere else, Mira and Dewi are walking along a park after their meeting with Huey and the others. There's tension between them, and Dewi breaks the silence by telling Mira about how he should have told her about his right eye earlier. Mira replies by telling Dewi that it's best if he dropped out of the competition. As it stands, Dewi's condition will only be a hindrance to the team. Mira then runs away from Dewi, all the while berating herself for treating one of her best friends coldly like that. Because in truth, Mira doesn't want Dewi to participate in the God of High School tournament out of fear that he might lose more than his right eye this time. Simply put, she wants Dewi out of the team because she's worried about him, but she couldn't find the words to tell him that. Meanwhile, in a European city currently overrun by the undead, a lone blonde man wearing a hood stands in front of a zombie horde. He utters the Lord's Prayer before straight up kicking one of the zombies in the face. The man summons a couple of pistols in his hands called the National Treasures Adam and Eve, before proceeding to shoot the zombies in front of him. At the same time, a nun channels energy just as another zombie horde is about to overtake her. The undead creatures get ripped apart when the nun summons her own national treasure, a gigantic morning star named Malleus Maleficarum, aka Bama. Then, a man sporting cornrows holds a Bible and utters the words, "Remove Omega," which causes a gang of zombies' heads to explode right in front of him. In the aftermath, it's revealed that these three are John, Maria, and Paul. They're Vatican Crusaders who have been chosen to participate in the God of High School tournament. John tells his teammates that the Z-Zone, also known as the Zombie Zone, is getting wider and wider. Maria thinks it's an omen for that day, while Paul tells them that this has also happened earlier in the Vatican. Then he declares that their new Messiah will be born soon. In another part of the world, a group of NASA scientists in Houston, Texas conduct an experiment behind a glass wall. On the other side, a red-haired man named Subject White Sox, James Austin, tells him to leave it all to him, as the scientists make the order to pump a man called Subject M full of drugs. Subject M gets juiced up and instantly turns into a gigantic, swole ape-man. Subject M attacks James and in the blink of an eye, the red-haired combatant knocks out the ape-man. However, it comes with a cost, as James's right arm has been broken. One of the scientists tells his colleague, a man going by the name Dr. Doogie, about the experiment's results. Dr. Doogie says to just wait and see what will happen next. As if on cue, Subject M suddenly regains consciousness and grabs James before mauling him to death. Seeing this, Dr. Dewey declares that their experiment is a success. However, Subject M punches through the glass wall and wreaks havoc within the NASA lab. Dr. Doogie then springs into action and gives Subject M a left overhand that sends the ape-man to sleep. After that, Dr. Doogie declares that Subject M's supersizing and destructive ability passes the muster, but they have to work on his emotional stability and intelligence. Suddenly, Dr. Doogie's lab coat burns away and reveals that he's wearing armor underneath it. He then declares that they have yet to fully comprehend the gene map of the Monkey King. A TV screen inside the lab then shows a news report about Team Korea participating in the upcoming God of High School. Dr. Doogie fixates on Mori when he sees him on the newsreel and orders one of his colleagues to give the host of the tournament a call and ask if it's possible for one participating country to send over two teams. According to Dr. Doogie, Subject M will take part in it, and soon he's going to make the ape-man, which also happens to be his brother, a perfect specimen. Somewhere else, a bunch of scantily clad women gush over Macedonian fighter Alexandros, who tells everyone that he doesn't need a team to fight with him at the tournament. So he pulls a couple of hotties from the crowd and declares that they'll be his teammates. While in China, God of High School participants Fei, Lin Mei, and Xiaolin prepare to get to work. Not long after that, a reporter announces that the God of High School World Tournament's consolation match will be a battle royale where the last two teams standing will be able to participate in the finals. And this is all going down in Sonyudo Park. While this is happening, Daewoo meets with Mujin to ask him if it's possible for him to back out of the tournament and have a replacement member take over his spot in Mira's team. Not long after that, Daewoo pays his old friend Wu Xiang-tae a visit at Sia Junyang Memorial Park. At the same time, the reporter announces that the consolation match for the God of High School tournament is about to start soon at Sunyodo Park. Contestants flock to the avenue, where they're first tasked with filling up and signing consent forms. Afterwards, each contestant is told to visit the park's management office to grab their nano bracelet and get their nano device injection. And soon, the gates to the park will open and the consolation match will begin. We find that Mira is in the middle of accomplishing her consent form, where she notices that there's a clause in the contract stipulating that none of the participants may complain even if they get killed in there. This makes her realize that this leaves their team open for any form of attack once the event begins. Huey approaches Mira and remarks about her sword, which she then says has been repaired by Mr. Seo. Huey wonders where Daewoo is and asks Mira if she can call him, but before she can reply, someone a short distance away greets them. A flashback from Daewoo's meeting with Mujin earlier reveals that he told him the reason for his withdrawal from the consolation match was to make sure he doesn't lose another eye. On top of that, we find out that Daewoo recommended none other than Gyeomji to take his place in Mira's team. And in the present, we see the sexy beast of Cheonyam ripping his trademark coat while he screams, "Revolution!" It goes without saying that Gyeomji is ready for another banger with his new team. But seeing Gyeomji just shocks Huey. Mira acts all coy about it and simply tells him that Daewoo recommended the guy to replace him in the upcoming contest. The announcer then declares that participants may now enter the park and that they have 40 minutes to make it to the venue proper. Team Mira decides to hang back in awkward silence. Back at Daewoo's house, we see that he's watching the event live on TV. His sister, Dae-young, enters the room to serve breakfast. In the middle of their meal, Daewoo asks his sister if it's alright to leave his friends if joining them means that they'd lose their important match today. Dae-young correctly surmises that her little brother is talking about the consolation match, so she offers to play a game with Daewoo. Dae-young tells her brother that she's going to flip a coin. If it's heads, he stays at home and finishes breakfast. If it's tails, he should leave and go to his friends. Then he can ask them if they really don't want him there. Back at the park, Mira tries to go ahead and enter the venue, but Huey stops her and pleads with Mira to wait just a bit longer on the off chance that Daewoo arrives. Hearing this makes Mira livid, as she tells Huey that Daewoo joining them might end up with their friend losing another eye. Plus, Daewoo already recommended Gyeomji as his replacement. Huey tells her that he's fully aware of that, but he explains that he'd rather participate in the tournament with Daewoo. Well, Mira just gets angrier when she hears this and accuses Huey of not caring about Daewoo at all. She chastises the clone and asks him what he would do if Daewoo gets in trouble at the consolation match. Huey tries to answer, but Mira cuts him off and tells him there's nothing he can do, because using his abilities for whatever reason will just put him at risk for revealing his secret to Nox and Mujin. At that moment, Huey shows Mira an old picture of Mori, Daewoo, and Mira taken during the first God of High School tournament they participated in. He tells her that he found it hidden within Mori's stuff along with a photo of Taijin. Huey then tells Mira that if he were Mori, he'd want to be with his closest friends for this event. Mira gives in and tells Huey that she's going to give him 10 minutes to wait for Daewoo. We then find out that all participants have 30 minutes left to make it to the venue proper. Back at the Han residence, Daeryong is just about to reveal the results of their coin toss when Daewoo stops her. He apologizes to his sister and tells her that he must go because his people need him. At the park, we find out that Team Mira has already been waiting for 15 minutes. Gyeomji asks his new teammates if they're going in now, but even Mira has decided to wait a bit longer. So Gyeomji just shrugs it off. He knows what's up. At the same time, Daewoo is rushing towards the park. He even comes across Gyeomji, who has since left Mira and Huey after realizing there's no way they're going to join the competition without Daewoo. Gyeomji even does Daewoo a solid and tells him to take a shortcut to the venue. Daewoo eventually reaches the back entrance of the park but finds that it's closed off. Suddenly, Mira and Huey appear right above Daewoo while riding Red Toma. They only have a minute before the gates close, so Daewoo grabs Huey's hand and tells him to count him in the upcoming competition. Back at home, Daeryong discovers that the coin toss resulted in heads. She's not too happy that Daewoo might be putting himself in danger again, but she's glad that her little brother has found good friends. Meanwhile, Team Mira rushes to make it in time to the event. In their haste, Red Toma accidentally crashes into a tree, which forces the tree to land in the middle of Songyudo Park. Huey also finds out that Mira has been keeping the same photograph he showed her earlier in her pocket as a keepsake. They make it just in time for the consolation match to begin, as the host instructs them to grab their nano device and injection at the park management office. Seeing the photograph, Daewoo teases Mira. Huey witnesses this and can't help but get jealous of Mori's life. He wonders if he even belongs there, but all doubts are erased when Daewoo calls for him, symbolically inviting Huey to be properly part of their group. Shortly after, the consolation match commences and the entirety of the venue becomes an absolute war zone. A few random participants meet their makers when they have the misfortune of coming across Fei, Lin Mei, and Shaolin of Team China. All the while, the announcer explains that there are no other rules aside from the fact that the last two teams remaining once everybody else has been taken out will participate in the finals. In addition, rankings will be determined by the total sum of all team members' HP. Other than that, all each team has to do is survive. Somewhere else at the park, we find that John and Maria of Team Vatican have also started hunting down the other participants. They had Team China in their crosshairs, but the three were able to make their escape before John and Maria could catch them. In another part of the venue, Team Malta Knights have just suffocated a couple of random participants to death. Not too far away, Team Japan can't help but be put off by the savagery of the competition. They surmise that the host of the event will probably only show what they want on TV. Plus, they think that the organizers of the event lied when they said that the participants' lives will be spared. Seeing as how it's a bloodbath out there. Near the park management office, Daewoo remarks that the new nano devices look exactly the same as the old ones, although he's well aware that new features were added to them. Particularly, it now has a tracking system, which Mira believes is a double-edged sword that allows him to find their targets. But at the same time, it also works the other way around. Suddenly, Alexandros and a couple of his groupies approach the three and start to hit on Mira. Huey notices that an auto-translate system has also been added to the nano devices when they understood what Alexandros was saying in his native tongue. The Macedonian continues to harass Mira, but she just looks at the guy with dead eyes and goes back to addressing her team. Alexandros then tells his groupies that he has some business to take care of and starts approaching Mira and her team. Huey blocks his path and politely tells Alexandros to back off. In reply, Alexandros checks his nano device and finds out that Huey is a level 6 participant. He calls Huey a weakling and sends the clone flying with a punch to the face. This alerts Mira and Daewoo, so they prepare to defend their friend. However, Mira loses confidence when she checks her nano device and discovers that Alexandros is a level 23 contestant. Meanwhile, Huey gets back on his feet to the surprise of Alexandros. At the same time, Daewoo reassures Mira that she's got this. Levels are just numbers. He then steps up to Alexandros, who uses a technique called Macedonian Sarisa Phalanx, 1 round. Daewoo meets this by activating his Fist of the Black Turtle ability, and the two fighters parry each other's punch. But the impact from Alexandros' ability edges out Daewoo's technique. This leaves him open for the Macedonian to slip past his blind side. Alexandros tells Daewoo that being half-blind is a fatal weakness in a fight. But before he can do anything to the Karate Master, Mira comes in clutch and surprises Alexandros with an elbow to the ribs. Mira wastes no time and follows it up with her trademark sword style, slashing Alexandros a couple of times before teleporting right behind him to hit the Macedonian with an overhead slash. Alexandros blocks this, but Mira continues to put pressure on their opponent. Seeing Mira lunging at him, Alexandros uses his borrowed power and summons Emperor Iskandar, better known as Alexander the Great. At the same time, Mira summons her own borrowed power, Yopo Bongseong, to meet Alexandros. The two fighters clash, and it sends a shockwave in the immediate vicinity. Daewoo witnesses this and hypes up Mira, basically telling her to believe in herself. Not too far away, a bird watches this battle go on. It's revealed that it's one of Judge P's marionettes, and she reports to Mujin that Team Mira seems to be doing fine in the Consolation match. However, Mujin thinks that Mira and her team just did something stupid when they revealed their powers. It turns out that one of the strategies for the Consolation match is to hide your abilities as much as possible. That's because each and every member is alerted when someone uses their power during the competition. In turn, the other contestants would definitely gang up on Mira and her team. The groupies see that Alexandros has been shaken from his clash against Mira. He starts giving Mira a history lesson about how ancient Macedonians used horses in battle before summoning Bucephalus, the legendary horse of Alexander the Great. Mira sees this and tries to answer by summoning Red Toma, but their battle is interrupted when a kunai hits her in the chest. Both Daewoo and Huey also get stabbed by a couple of kunai from out of nowhere. It's revealed that Faye was the one responsible for throwing these weapons, as he tells his teammates that they've taken out one of Team Mira's members. However, Huey spots him, and the Jinmori clone doesn't think about the consequences when he uses his Yui to expand and strike Faye from where he's hiding. As a result, all the other competitors in the Consolation match become aware that Huey is a level 43 combatant. Somewhere else, Ilpio and Beck prepare to enter the sacred place to take it back from the Nox cultists and proceed with their plan to rescue the original Jinmori. Back at the Consolation match, Huey's magical staff hits Faye square in the midsection, which sends the meddling Chinese participant flying. With no time to waste, Huey then grabs his teammates and tells Mira to summon Red Toma this instant. She successfully brings forth their magical rod and the three make their escape. Meanwhile, Lin Mei and Shaolin use their combined abilities to help Faye recover from the hit he took. Faye is furious that no one informed him that someone as powerful as Huey would be participating in the event. Suddenly, Alexandros walks up to them and asks Team China if they were the ones who tried to take what was rightfully his. To him, Team China is just a bunch of thieves who interrupted his war against Mira, Daewoo, and Huey. The groupies see this and remark that Faye and his teammates are absolutely screwed now that they've ticked off Alexandros. Not a second passes and a huge explosion rocks the area where Alex and Team China were standing. Some distance away, Mira, Daewoo, and Huey take out the kunai stuck in their bodies and recover some of their strength. Mira tells Huey she's alright, but she's annoyed that Huey used his abilities, which puts him at risk of revealing his true identity. In his defense, Huey argues that using Huey can be seen as similar to someone using borrowed power. On top of that, their main goal is to keep his identity as a clone a secret, but showing his powers as Jaehong Daesung is still par for the course. In fact, Huey turns the tables around and chastises Mira for calling him by his full name, Mori Huey, which might give the other contestants a clue about his true identity. In the meantime, Daewoo is worried that being blind in one eye has absolutely messed with his depth perception. What's worse is that he's noticed that each and every opponent that they've faced so far has been targeting his left eye. Huey then tells the team that the kunai they were hit with might have been poisoned. So he proposes that they lie low for a while and head for the nearby emergency medical center when the coast is clear. Hearing this makes Mira realize how different Huey is from the original Jinmori. She thinks that if this were the real Mori, he would have thrown their plan out the window. On the other hand, she thinks that Huey is more helpful when it comes to making rational decisions on the field. Still, all of this just makes her notice how much she misses the real Mori. Mira's mood gets better when Huey mistakes a bunch of graffiti on a nearby wall for high art. She can't help but laugh at how clueless Huey is and remembers that even though they have their differences, Huey still contains a part of the original Jinmori. However, this brief moment of levity is cut short when Huey suddenly notices something piercing him. He calls for Mira's name just as he hears someone say the words, "Start DNA sample extraction." The process then calls Huey's overall health points, leaving him with a measly 15 HP. In fact, Huey would have been absolutely taken out if Mira didn't intervene and strike the invisible assailant who just attacked Huey. The force from Mira's strike forces the attacker to lose their stealth capabilities and reveal himself. Huey passes out, and we discover that the person who just extracted his DNA is none other than Dr. Doogie. The American shows himself to Mira and Daewoo, and unsurprisingly utters stereotypes about Koreans while he's at it. On the bright side, Doogie's stealth mode is currently rebooting, while Mira's attack damaged 80% of his shields. Doogie tells him that he's not there to fight, but Mira isn't hearing any of it. She lunges at the American with her sword, but Doogie drops the device on the ground and sneaks away from Team Korea. It lets out a loud beep that attracts the other contestants to their location and further distracts Mira and Daewee. However, he's able to tell the two to take the device with him before completely disappearing. Daewee checks his nano device and sees that a mob of about 20 to 30 contestants are on their way to their location. So Mira grabs the device Doogie left and summons Red Toma again to hoof it out of there. However, vines start to entangle Red Toma the moment it tries to take a step. All of a sudden, a random contestant reveals himself to be using his own borrowed power called Ariadne's Thread to subdue the magical horse. He calls for his teammates to attack Mira's team, so she and Daewee are left with no choice but to face them head-on. Mira tells Daewee to prioritize guarding the unconscious Huey as she analyzes their surroundings. Mira gets pressured, considering that Daewee is not at the top of his game, Huey is out of commission, and there are now more than 50 attackers on their way to gang up on them. Still, Mira maintains her composure and manages to take out a significant chunk of their attackers' ranks with a single swing of her sword. Meanwhile, Daewee is busy fending off the other contestants trying to attack them. But the number of enemies just proves too much for Daewee right now, especially when he also has to make sure not to let any one of them catch his blindside. Daewee fights valiantly, but one of the contestants manages to slip past his guard and prepares to strike his left eye. Daewee's too late to react. Thankfully, Mira jumps in and knocks out his attacker before he could slash Daewee's good eye. More and more random contestants rush Mira and Daewee. Not too far away, Team Japan watches all of this unfold. Their leader, Kyoichi Kusanagi, remarks that they've been expecting this to happen. Another member, Sugihara Oyama, expresses that he is against their plan. However, their third member, Nagisa Midori, tells Oyama that the matter is settled, considering they voted on it. Kyoichi then tells his teammates to get ready as they prepare to go to Team Korea's location and enter the fray. Meanwhile, we see Faye and Shaolin struggling to get away from Alexandros. Shaolin asks him if he's alright, but Faye tells him that they should worry more about Mei, who has decided to hang back and deal with Alexandros so that her teammates could escape the Macedonian warrior. Back at Team Korea, Mira proceeds to use her sword to completely fend off any attackers trying to blind Daewee. He tries to thank her, but Daewee immediately notices that Mira has completely zoned out and entered a trance. That is to say, the Moonlight Sword style master has fully entered a flow state in which she is able to put all her energy and focus into the battle in front of her. Mira goes on to slash a couple more random contestants trying to ambush them, and even she can notice how effective it is to take them out one by one. In fact, Mira has gotten so locked in that she's able to shatter a mace with a single swing of her sword. Daewee looks on and notices how efficient Mira's movements have become, with not a single bit of wasted motion. This allows Mira to become super efficient at taking down an entire group of attackers one at a time. Daewee even compares Mira's movements to the flow of water because of how fluid it is. Suddenly, another random contestant manages to sneak behind Mira and subdue her. His teammates attempt to ambush her, but Mira easily breaks free from her opponent and, as before, proceeds with hacking away at the unnamed contestants. All the while, Mira thinks of Priest Ryu, another master of the Moonlight Sword style, as she does her best to emulate his movements and incorporate them in her techniques. In the meantime, Daewee retains his composure and proceeds to support Mira with his trademark Kyokushin karate style. He knocks out a couple of attackers, but he can't help but realize that he's currently unable to use his borrowed power. Still, Daewee powers through even when he notices that his blind spot has significantly narrowed down his dynamic visual acuity. In the middle of this, a random attacker punches him, but Daewee instantly recovers and knocks out the guy with a punch to the gut. Daewee is starting to get tired as more attackers mobilize to surround them. But he digs deep and is able to use his Kyokushin karate, the kick of the Red Phoenix technique, to take out more of their enemies. Mira tells him not to leave Mori alone, but Daewee, like her, appears like he's gotten into a flow state, as he plows through a row of enemies with Kyokushin karate, the dance of the White Tiger. The mob finally starts to notice how strong Daewee is, but one of them uses their borrowed power called St. George Ascalon Sword and remarks at how Daewee appears to be frightened. In the meantime, another row of random contestants gets their butts handed to them when Daewee uses a powerful blast to blow them out of the way. The guy with the Ascalon sword takes this opportunity to rush Daewee and nearly slice off his left eye, but Mira arrives just in time to break their enemy's blade and save her friend. A brief moment later, Daewee has noticed that he's gotten far away from his original spot and has inadvertently left Huey open. Daewee realizes that his actions have left Huey vulnerable, not to mention that Mira has gotten injured because of him. In fact, he just feels even more guilty when Mira returns to him and tells Daewee how happy she is that he didn't get hurt. Suddenly, a group of identical random attackers attempt to stab the unconscious Huey not far from where Mira and Daewee are standing. Mira tells Daewee to use his bubble technique to protect their friend, but he fails at this. Huey is about to get stabbed, so Mira makes the call and tells Daewee to stay right behind her as she rushes to Huey's position. However, Huey's attacker notices that his blades won't penetrate the boy's body. Unknown to them or even to Huey himself, he's able to unconsciously activate Jehon De-sung's armor suits, which protects Huey from taking any more damage. Suddenly, one of the members of Team Malta appears and breaks the arms of Huey's attackers. Knowing that they're not really there to help, Mira attacks one of the Knights of Malta, but she loses their duel when one of his teammates, a Knight of Malta named Donatello, appears behind Mira and tries to impale her with his energy-charged hand. Dewi tries to rush in there and help her, but Sugihara of Team Japan blocks his path and tells him to wait. Dewi thinks he's just another enemy, so he tries to attack Sugihara. Meanwhile, we find out that Mira has handled one of the Knights of Malta pretty well as she slashes the guy with her sword. Curiously enough, Dewi notices that Sugihara is also a practitioner of Kyokushin karate when they end up in a standstill after they both use the Kyokushin karate fist technique. A short distance away, Dewi sees that Mira has also defeated the second Knight of Malta who tried to attack her from behind. Witnessing this, Dewi can only ask Mira if she's alright. All of a sudden, the rest of Team Japan arrives on the scene, as Kyoichi tells Mira and Dewi that they're here to help. Kyoichi then offers to ally with Team Korea for now. While all this is happening, Huey has a dream of the original Jin Mori. He sees the original Mori telling him something that he can't quite figure out. Huey tries to chase after the original Mori as he tells him that he's not the real one. Huey then recalls his recent interactions with Dewi and Mira. In the end, he can only ask the question, "Who am I?" After that, the original Jin Mori turns around to face Huey and tell him that he isn't ready yet. Back at the Consolation match, we find out that Mira has lost consciousness after spending all her energy defeating the random attackers and the two Knights of Malta that attacked them. Midori and Kyoichi start performing a chant, and it culminates with Kyoichi sending out an energy blast that tears through the second Knight of Malta. The two Team Japan waste no time too, as they immediately summon the sacred animal Kamaitachi, aka the Sickle Weasel, to whisk away Huey and Mira to safety. Midori tells Dewi that Mira's wound is deep, but she'll pull through with the help of a healing talisman that she's placed on her. On the other hand, Midori also notices that Huey isn't human at all. Dewi thanks Team Japan, but Sugihara tells him that their help doesn't come for free. Kyoichi reiterates that they want to ally with Team Korea for now, while Midori tells them that they should sort out this mess first. After that, Dewi and his team can listen to their offer. Kyoichi remains copacetic and even tries to tell Dewi that he and Sugihara share something similar, but Sugihara cuts him off. So Team Japan's leader gets back to business and brings his attention back to the Knights of Malta, who have just regenerated their damaged bodies. Kyoichi notices that one of Team Malta's members is missing, and we find out that this third member is hovering just above them. The guy tries to attack Kyoichi's team, but a murder of crows sets themselves upon the Knight of Malta and takes him out. Kyoichi then forms hand seals and orders the crows to destroy their target. It's then revealed that Kyoichi knew where the third member was hiding all along. He just lied about it to trick their enemies. Suddenly, the Knights of Malta in front of them blast him with a huge burst of energy, but Kyoichi defends Dewi and the others when he summons one of his national treasures, Yata's mirror, which also happens to be one of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan. We find out that the guy responsible for this blast is the red-haired Knight of Malta. In fact, his attack is so strong that it ends up cracking Yata's mirror to the shock and surprise of Kyoichi. Still, Kyoichi manages to protect everyone, but Dewi can't help but be impressed with the guy's abilities. With the Knight of Malta's salvo over and done with, Kyoichi breaks the Buddha beads on his arm and prepares to face their opponent head-on. He outstretches his arm and out of it comes his second national treasure, the Kusanagi sword. Kyoichi slashes the red-haired Knight of Malta in one fluid motion. On top of that, the wound caused by Kusanagi opens up and a giant 8-headed serpent springs out of it. We find out that this is Kyoichi's very own borrowed power, the legendary creature from Japanese folklore, Yamada no Orochi. Yamada no Orochi then lunges at the red-haired Knight of Malta, which causes a huge explosion in the middle of the contest venue. Somewhere else, Sang Mandok and Bishop R intently watch the Consolation match on the screen. Bishop R remarks how Mandok seems to be quite interested in the fight going on between Team Malta and Team Japan-Team Korea alliance. Back at the park, Kyoichi tells everyone that they should retreat. He turns around, but a bright yellow dot suddenly appears on his back. Mandok then reveals that the reason he's so invested in this fight is because one of them is the son of Nox's king. Meanwhile, the red-haired Knight of Malta prepares to attack Kyoichi and his allies. Kyoichi desperately tries to summon Yata's mirror when he sees that their enemy has fully charged up his attack. Then, the next thing we see is another huge blast that doesn't just rock the park, but causes tremors around the city. We then find out that the king is also watching the Consolation match, particularly the red-haired Knight of Malta, who's then revealed to be Dante, the king's son. In the middle of the park, we find out that Kyoichi has summoned Yata's mirror just in time to defend against Dante's blast. But this one's much stronger than the one that came before it, and Kyoichi can feel that his shield won't hold. Kyoichi manages to hang in there and endure Dante's blast, but he's shocked to see that Dante's ready to unleash another one after Yata's mirror disappears. However, Mira is able to regain consciousness and instantly rush toward the Knights of Malta before Dante is able to unleash a third blast. Mira slides between Dante's legs and right into the middle of the three members of Team Malta before using her sword to defeat each one of them using fluid thrusts. Her skills surprise even Team Japan when they witness this. And just to make sure that Dante doesn't hassle them anymore, Mira slashes him upward while her sword is impaled deep within his body. Dante gets split in two as Mira declares she'll do everything to protect her friends. But Dante is able to instantly recover from Mira's barrage and prepares to attack her from behind. However, he gets hit with a devastating punch square in the face before he could set himself on Mira. Dewi looks at what's happening and flashes back to a time when Mira asked her why he didn't choose to form a contract with the spirit of the founder of Kyokushin Karate, Beidal Choi. It turns out that someone had already signed up with Choi at the time, and we discover that it's none other than Sugihara, as he summons Beidal Choi to hit Dante with a cracking punch. Sugihara puts pressure on Dante and follows up with a technique called cutting bull's horn, and it causes another huge explosion in the middle of the battlefield. The dust settles and we see that Dante is still standing, getting ready to hit his opponents with another blast. However, he notices that both Team Japan and Team Korea have already made their escape, so Dante magically heals the grievous wound on his body before approaching one of the random contestants nearby. He raises his hand in front of the guy, and all we hear next is a loud scream. Somewhere else, we find out that Mugen and Judge P are actually slumming it and watching the event unfold in front of an electronics store. A news reporter gives an update that Team Korea and Team Japan have teamed up, with Mira and her friends sustaining injuries from their previous bout with the Knights of Malta and the mob of random contestants. Mugen watches the footage of the fight's highlights and recognizes a green stone floating in the background. He notices that this is the same kind of artifact that he saw underground. Later, Team Japan and Team Korea have found a safe place to hide. Mira presses and asks them what they want from their team. Kyoichi then tells her that the reason they want to team up is so that they can have Huey, thinking that he's the real Jin Mori, defeat the Knights of Malta. Mira then asks them why they're so dead set on taking out these guys, to which Midori informs them that she comes from a family of shamans who have the ability to see a person's death. But when she looked at Dante and Huey, she noticed that she couldn't see their future. This only meant one thing, that both Huey and Dante aren't human beings. And according to Midori, only another non-human can beat another non-human. So in this case, only Huey has the power to put an end to Dante. Mira's still not entirely convinced, so she asks Team Japan what her group can get if they decide to agree to this alliance. Kyoichi tells her that he and his friends will protect Team Korea from every other team in the Consolation match, except the Knights of Malta. Mira then tells him that they don't need Team Japan's help. Kyoichi loses his patience and replies that given how wounded they are, they really have no choice in the matter. Mira prepares for a fight, but Kyoichi cools down and instead chooses to go the diplomatic route. He explains that each and every one in Mira's team is wounded. On top of that, there's a good chance that they'll end up facing opponents that are much stronger than the ones they encountered earlier. Plus, those guys might even end up forming alliances of their own to take out Team Korea. In addition to that, since the rules of the Consolation match states that the last two teams standing, there's a higher chance that both Team Korea and Team Japan would be the finalists by the end of the game. Mira finally sees Kyoichi's point, but she's still reluctant. However, Dewi cuts in and tells her that he's perfectly fine with joining forces with Kyoichi's team. For one, they could have taken them out earlier, considering that Team Japan had numerous chances to backstab Team Korea, but they didn't. For another, Dewi tells Mira that she can't handle everything by herself. The best course of action right now is to ally themselves with Team Japan. Mira hears all this and asks Kyoichi's team what would happen if only one team can advance to the finals. Sugihara then tells her that they're going to withdraw their alliance at that point and they could fight each other freely. Mira then realizes that this is their best option right now and finally agrees to team up with Team Japan. That night, Dewi tries to put in some training and realizes that his fist isn't deep enough to have as much power as Sugihara's. Meanwhile, Midori tends to Mira's wounds, and she notices how hard the swordsman has trained based on Mira's scars and physique. Once they're done, Midori tells Mira to take it easy, since her wounds haven't fully healed yet. However, Mira says that she can't do that, pointing out that her injuries are nothing compared to Dewi losing one of his eyes. Midori thinks that both Mira and Dewi are good people, and tells her that the reason he accepted the alliance was because Dewi wanted to protect Mira. Midori falls silent for a second before telling Mira something else. Just outside, Dewi continues to hone his martial arts. Unknown to him, Sugihara is nearby watching him train. Back inside their hideout, we see Mira grabbing Midori by the collar as she asks her to repeat what she just told her. It turns out that Midori's shamanistic abilities allowed her to see Dewi's future. According to her, Dewi doesn't have much time left in this world. He's probably going to lose his life during the world competition. Morning comes and we find out that Dewi has spent the entire night training, going back to basics to polish his fighting style. According to him, he should focus on whatever he can see and keep everything else out of his mind. And instead of dodging the attacks coming to him completely, Dewi remembers that the main rule of Kyokushin Karate is to brush any incoming attack aside and proceed with a counterattack. Dewi was so locked on in training that he failed to notice that the sun had already risen. Meanwhile, Mira too hasn't been able to get a wink of sleep after Midori informed her of Dewi's ultimate fate. In a flashback to earlier that night, she asked Midori when exactly Dewi's going to die, but the shamaness couldn't tell, since it's outside her abilities. Mira then asked if there was a chance that her vision was wrong, to which Midori replied that she had never been mistaken with her predictions. In the present, Mira's thoughts race as she desperately tries to come up with a way to avert this prophecy. She wonders who she could tell it to before her own musings overwhelm her. Dewi approaches her and asks Mira what's on her mind. He presumes she's trying to come up with a new strategy for the consolation match and reminds her not to push herself too much. In reply, all Mira can do is ask how Dewi feels before telling him to take it easy as well. Mira walks away. But, realizing that her days with Dewi are probably numbered, she finally confesses her true feelings for him. Hearing this, Dewi replies that he really likes Mira too, as she walks away and tells him to take care of himself. Dewi wonders if Mira's crying, but he ultimately brushes off the thought and goes a separate way. Meanwhile, Mira tells herself that she's going to protect each and every one of her friends. She remembers what Ryu told her before, about how she needs to be a monster to do it. And in the present, Mira becomes resolute in becoming one to achieve this goal. Somewhere else, Ilpio and Beck have successfully infiltrated the Nox-occupied sacred place. They make easy work of any worshiper or priest along the way, as they secretly take them down on the way to the inner sanctum. Eventually, Ilpio, Beck, and Uma reach the area where they can open the gate to the sage realm and proceed with the ritual to do so. Uma uses her spells and a giant gate appears before Ilpio and Beck. It opens, and Ilpio transforms into the nine-tailed fox before entering the sage realm. He also activates the fox beats so that he and Beck can coordinate while he's out there. Ilpio then makes the journey to the sage realm. In a flashback from centuries ago, we see the Buddha telling the Monkey King that he could have become the next Buddha if not for his rotten nature. The Buddha accuses the Monkey King of breaking taboo, but the Monkey King just tells him to shut his mouth because the Buddha was the one who broke the promise. The Monkey King then tells the Buddha that he's going to die today. Meanwhile, other gods like a much younger iteration of the king watch as this fight is about to unfold. The king tells his fellow gods that if the Buddha loses to the Monkey King, then it'll be the end for their kind too. But the king wonders if it might be another beginning instead, before turning to the earth goddess Gaia and telling her to just watch helplessly as the Buddha and the Monkey King clash. Later, we see the near-unconscious Monkey King floating around space. The king approaches him and tells him that he's going to spare his life because he pleases him. Also, the king offers to make a bet with the Monkey King. It then turns out that Huey has been dreaming all of this, as he wakes up in the middle of their hideout within the park. Back at the sacred place, Beck and Uma receive a report from Ilpio telling them that the sage realm is completely gone. All of a sudden, Beck and Uma feel a powerful presence approaching their location. Because at this moment, just outside the sacred place, the King of Nox is about to enter. We then find out that the Knights of Malta have just accosted Team Houston, made up of Dr. Doogie and Subject M. Dante has the gigantic ape man on his knees, while another Knight of Malta grabs Doogie by the neck. They tell Doogie to not do anything rash or they'll end up dead. Subject M lashes out and tries to defend itself by charging up an energy blast from its mouth, but Dante easily knocks him out by sticking his index finger on top of the ape man's head. Then Dante tells Doogie that he's going to dispose of Subject M as he tries to hit the downed beastman with a classic finger gun. He charges up energy, preparing to execute Subject M amidst Doogie's screams to stop. However, Alexandros arrives from out of nowhere, which causes Dante to pause. The Macedonian warrior correctly assumes that it was Dante who blew up the stadium earlier, which injured one of his groupies, Natasha. As payback, Alexandros offers Dante to just eat up a couple of his punches and then they'd be square. But one of the Knights of Malta suddenly tries to sucker punch the Macedonian from the side. Alexandros easily does away with the guy with a solid punch to the face, which distracts the other Knights of Malta. This gives Doogie enough time to press a button on his wrist. Meanwhile, Alexandros notices that the previous attacker was able to open up a small cut on his neck. He brushes it off, but tells his two groupies to hang back while he deals with their opponents. Alexandros pumps himself up. All of a sudden, blood spews out of Dante's back when he notices that an invisible slice has hit him. Even Alexandros is taken aback when he sees this. A second later, another Knight of Malta gets absolutely shredded by more invisible slices. Then, Dante feels a powerful force thrusting into his midsection. We then find out that Dr. Doogie was the one behind this, as he uses his tech to start DNA sample extraction from his opponents. And just like that, Dante's HP falls to 0, while Doogie taps Subject M to activate his stealth and shield mode so that they can escape. Alexandros sees this and rushes toward Dante and Doogie's spot. One of the Knights of Malta blocks his path, but a right straight to its face easily knocks it out. However, Alexandros suddenly feels an invisible projectile hit him in the gut. He pauses for a second and finds that Dante has fully recovered to hit him with the projectile. Seeing this, Alexandros rejoices to see that his target is alive and well, which means he can throw down with the guy. Back at Team Japan and Team Korea, Dewi tries to ask Sugihara for a favor, to show him his borrowed power from Badal Choi. Sugihara tells him to piss off because showing him his borrowed power won't amount to anything. According to Sugihara, it's going to take Dewi 100 years if he wants to copy Badal Choi's techniques. so Daewoo proposes instead for Sugihara to take him under his wing. Specifically, he asks Sugihara if he can be Daewoo's sparring partner. In another part of their hideout, Kyoichi tells Midori to stop worrying so much. He thinks that Yamada no Orochi won't eat him even after using a significant amount of the mythical serpent's powers. But Midori reminds Kyoichi to be careful. Kyoichi then asks about Team Korea, and Midori tells him that they're currently resting. All of a sudden, a tremor rocks their hideout. Kyoichi knows what's up and asks if their enemies have already started hunting them. Outside, Team Vatican ambushes the hideout, with John spraying bullets all over the place with his pistols. Paul does the sign of the cross and activates a technique called the Grace of God, which buffs up Team Vatican with 30% more offense and defense. Maria and John get jacked up as they continue to assault the hideout. Their ambush stops, however, when Kyoichi's crows start flying towards Team Vatican to attack John. Kyoichi activates his Destroy Sigil, which causes the murder of crows to explode right in front of Team Vatican. But Kyoichi is taken by surprise when he sees Maria lunging at him out of nowhere with her national treasure, Mama. Midori jumps in between them and protects Kyoichi. Paul walks in on the hideout and calls Team Japan a bunch of Oriental black magic users that must be purged, while Kyoichi prepares to throw down with the Crusaders. Somewhere else inside the hideout, Daewoo and Sugihara are busy fending off a wave of faceless clay men trying to pile up on them. Daewoo focuses on the fight and remembers his training from earlier, as he keeps the claymen in his line of sight and counters each of their strikes. But then, Team China's Shaolin ambushes Daewoo. They clash, and Daewoo manages to get in a high left kick to Shaolin's face in the process. But the Team China member manages to recover and hits Daewoo with a counterattack that sends him flying back several feet. Daewoo recognizes that Shaolin has just used a technique called the 1-inch punch on him and realizes that his opponent is a Jeet Kune Do practitioner. Daewoo tries to get back up, but he collapses some distance away from Shaolin. Shaolin suddenly hears a voice from behind, which draws his attention. It's Sugihara, and Shaolin immediately hits him with a punch, but the Kyokushin karate master blocks it. Sugihara commands the Jeet Kune Do user's skills as he readies his stance for a showdown. Daewoo looks on at the upcoming clash, but he ducks down on instinct when John tries to shoot him with his pistol. The Vatican Crusader approaches Daewoo and tells him to hand over the heretical creature, referring to Huey. Meanwhile, somewhere else inside the park, Alexandros has just been hit with a devastating attack that leaves his left shoulder gushing with blood. His groupies see this and can only scream his name, as they see the damage on the Macedonian warrior. In a flashback from just a few minutes before Team China and Team Vatican ambush the hideout, we see Faye scouting the area. He asks how their teammate Lin Mei is doing, and Shaolin informs him that she's badly injured after her encounter with Alexandros earlier. Faye gets frustrated and says that this whole mission of theirs is not worth it. He then gets a call on his phone from a man who tells him that he and Team China only have an hour to complete their request. Faye lashes out at the caller and says that their contract is now void since the target they're supposed to go after is a monster, referring to Huey. The man on the other line asks if Faye is willing to break their agreement, to which the leader of Team China says that he is. However, his tone changes when the person on the other end of the line starts to threaten Faye by saying that he might just harvest a bunch of orphans' internal organs and sell them on the black market if Team China breaks their contract. In the end, Faye is forced to carry out their mission, and we find out that the man on the other line is none other than Nox's Mandoc. The call ends, and Faye smashes his phone on the ground out of frustration. Moments later, he spots Team Vatican ambushing Team Japan and Team Korea's hideout. Lin Mei proposes that they attack Team Korea now, but Faye's worried about how they're going to handle Huey. To that, Lin Mei says that she's going to use herself as a human shield to take on the monster. According to her, she's dying anyway, so she plans on making herself useful until then. On the ground, Maria senses that there's another team in the vicinity. Paul tells her to leave them be since they're not after Team Vatican, so they continue ambushing the hideout. In the present, Huey wakes up to find Mira has fallen asleep after watching over him. She wakes up and immediately asks how Huey's doing. He says he's fine, but they check his nano device to see that he hasn't recovered any of his health points he lost from earlier. In any case, Mira's just glad that Huey has finally regained consciousness. Mira wipes the tears from her eyes, and Huey notices that her fingers are all blistered from using her sword. Suddenly, they feel a tremor, so Mira grabs her sword and tells Huey to stay put. In her rush, Mira forgets to wear her glasses, so Huey decides to pick it up and take it to her. In the other room, Mira comes face to face with Faye, who summons a glaive to throw down with a Moonlight Sword-style practitioner. Huey arrives to provide backup, but Lin Mei appears behind him for an ambush. It doesn't work because Huey is able to instantly knock out the Team China member with Yui. Huey notices that Lin Mei is already wounded even before attacking him. With no time to waste, Mira orders Huey to go and help Daewoo while she deals with Faye. In a different part of the hideout, John and Daewoo are locked in battle. John multitasks and even shoots both Shaolin and Sugihara while in the middle of this clash. While outside, Paul is faced against Kyoichi and Midori. At the same time, John and Paul propose an alliance with Team Japan. Paul explains to Midori and Kyoichi that joining up to defeat Team Korea right here and now is the only chance they have of winning the whole tournament. Midori instantly refuses, but Kyoichi decides to hear the Crusaders out. He asks Paul how they're planning on defeating the two non-humans on Team Korea and Team Malta in reference to Huey and Dante. Paul says that they plan on pitting them against each other. Whoever wins that fight will surely be exhausted, and Team Vatican aims on picking them off while they haven't recovered. Paul then shows Kyoichi and Midori his national treasure, Halidom, the Holy Grail. He claims that it could destroy any non-human, but Midori tells Kyoichi that she's not sure if it can really do that. In a flashback, we find out that Paul was the original mastermind of proposing an alliance between Team Vatican and Team Japan. According to him, Team Japan and Team Korea's alliance is based on benefit. So, breaking that would be easy if they proposed an even sweeter benefit to Team Japan. Maria then asked Paul what they should do if Team Japan refused their offer, to which Paul said that it doesn't really matter. The whole point of their plan is to shake up and form cracks within Japan and Korea's alliance. In the present, Paul asks Kyoichi again if he's willing to team up with the Crusaders. Inside the hideout, Huey rushes to Daewi's location. He tries using his magical gourd to absorb everything in the area, but the green crystal inside the room reacts to it and renders the gourd useless. Outside, Kyoichi stays quiet after hearing Paul's offer. Meanwhile, John tries to sweeten the deal when he tells Sugihara that he's also going to take out Daewi with his gun if they ally with Team Vatican. John pulls the trigger right in front of Daewi, but he manages to time his dodge and evade the bullet. However, John points his other pistol at Daewi's blind spot, which freezes him in his tracks. John shoots Daewi, but a swirl of black energy stops the bullet mid-air. Daewi turns to see that Huey has arrived right behind John and has used his Monkey King armor to protect his friend. Huey asks John who he is, but the Crusader instead attempts to shoot him. None of the slugs hit Huey though, as his Monkey King armor automatically absorbs the bullet's momentum. But John notices that Huey only has 15 hit points left. All it will take to end him is one bullet, so John combines the buff that Paul gave him earlier with his special silver bullet and starts spraying Huey with bullets. Huey notices that John's shots have gotten stronger, as his armor can barely keep up with the number of bullets it has to stop. John even jumps over Huey to find an opening in his defense. When he spots it, the Crusader starts shooting at Huey again, thinking that he's finally got him on the ropes. But John is shocked to see that, much like before, none of his slugs have landed on his target. And this time, Huey has nearly activated his entire Monkey King armor to protect him from his opponent. The clone then calls on Yue. Outside, Dante can't help but turn to the direction of the hideout when he senses a powerful attack coming. Alexandros is frustrated that the Knight of Malta isn't taking him seriously. But a split second later, John is sent flying off across the entire breadth of Sunyudo Park when Huey's Yue expands and hits him square in the gut. Trees and buildings get destroyed as John crashes into them. By the time Yue has stopped expanding, we find out that John's still standing. He had to use his robe as a shield to lessen the impact of the blow. John then takes off his robe and summons his borrowed power, the Angel Uriel. John grows a few pairs of wings and manifests a giant sword on his back. In fact, John gets so swole that his power levels immediately jump to 52. Paul sees his teammate and calls for John, who jumps into the air to meet Huey on his flying cloud. John tries to attack Huey, but he fends off the Crusader with Yue again. John crashes into the ground, but Huey spots that Paul and Maria are performing a ritual using the Holy Grail. Paul reveals that he can only use his national treasure 3 times and that John went off script from their original plan to leave the place after offering Team Japan an alliance. The sight of Paul and Maria distracts Huey enough for John to fly behind him and slash his back with the giant sword. It manages to take out 7 hit points from Huey, leaving him now with 8 HP, but John's attack causes his sword to break. Huey then turns to John and summons his powerful storm cloud, Yondu-woon. Maria and Paul witness this and hope that John is able to hold on for a bit longer while they prepare their attack. Suddenly, Huey is distracted when he notices that Gyun-do-woon seems to be dissipating. He calls for Jinmori's name. At the same time, Daewi sees that Gyun-do-woon is forming somewhere else, a short distance away from Huey. Huey looks on in the distance and wonders if the original Jinmori is in the area where Gyun-do-woon is forming. On the ground, Daewi thinks the same as he stands in front of Maria and Paul. He tries to attack Paul to stop him from continuing his ritual, but Maria blocks his path. She hits him with Mama, which Daewi blocks. Maria reveals that Paul is unable to defend himself while using the Holy Grail. Somewhere else, in outer space, a satellite orbits around the moon, which has a giant humanoid creature resting on top of it. While inside NASA's lab, a couple of scientists inform their colleague that Subject M is collapsing and that they've received unknown data from the satellite going around the moon. One of them checks the reports, as his fellow scientists inform him that Subject M might completely get destroyed in 10 minutes. The other NASA researcher then replies to his colleagues that he has a story to tell, but they have to keep it secret. Back at Sunyudo Park, Dr. Doogie goes on his computer to try and rescue Subject M. At the moment, the ape-man's DNA has been 80% destroyed, so much so that Subject M's entire right arm falls to the ground as the DNA collapse progresses. Desperate to salvage the experiment, Doogie clacks away at his computer and synthesizes a drug derived from the DNA sample he stole from Huey earlier. According to his findings, this injection contains a 99.98% match to Jinmori's DNA. Doogie then has a flashback before injecting Subject M with the drug, in which we discover that Subject M's real name is Michael and that he's actually Doogie's adopted brother. In the present, Doogie thinks that the drug will save his brother, so he injects the ape-man with it. We then find out that Gun Do-woon has been swirling above Subject M. A second later, the ape-man becomes lucid enough to tell Doogie to run away. It's too late though, as Gun Do-woon releases a salvo of lightning bolts all around them. Meanwhile, we find out that Paul has finished his ritual and the Holy Grail has been activated. It covers the immediate vicinity of the hideout with bright light. At the same time, Mugen sees us on the TV screen in front of the electronics store and starts berating Team Vatican for using the Holy Grail for something that's stupid. Back at the hideout, every participant in the Consolation match gets showered in light and notices how nothing's happening to them. But we then find out that the Holy Grail only affects non-humans, as the Grail's light starts dissolving his body. The pain is so immense that Huey can't help but ask if what he's experiencing right now is death. While this is happening, Daewoo manages to give Maria a cracking rib shot that knocks the air out of the Crusader. He then steps up to Paul and tells him to stop whatever he's doing with the Grail right now. Paul says it's too late, but Daewoo is not taking no for an answer. In reply, he gives Paul a solid right cross to the face in order to force him to stop using the Grail. Daewoo doesn't let up and hits Paul with a left uppercut, all the while telling his enemy to stop. Daewoo manages to get in a devastating knee to Paul's body before Maria jumps right behind him and bashes Daewoo with her national treasure. Daewoo recoils for a second, but he immediately goes back to punishing Paul with a right overhand that knocks down the Crusader. And again, Daewoo keeps on repeating his one order, for Paul to stop the Grail. Maria sees this and asks her god for forgiveness, thinking she's about to murder Daewoo. She smacks him in the head with Mama, but Daewoo just eats this up and goes back to beating Paul to a pulp until he stops the Holy Grail's magic. Knowing that there's no stopping Daewoo, Paul tells Maria to just leave him be. The Crusader plays the martyr and asks their god to guide Daewoo to the right path. And at that moment, we see Huey completely getting dissolved by the Grail's light. Back at Team Houston, Subject M lets out a powerful surge of energy that can be felt all around the park. While inside the NASA lab, the scientist tells his colleagues about the ape-man's true origins. It turns out that Michael was suffering from a terminal disease and that their organization used the creature on the moon and the Monkey King's DNA obtained from the pillar near it to save Michael, which in turn transformed him into Subject M. On the ground, we find that Doogie has been completely knocked down after the lightning bolts hit them. Plus, his computer reveals that Subject M's DNA collapse has been cancelled. However, Doogie's injection didn't work as planned, as we also find out that the DNA sync between the drug and Subject M resulted in an unidentical match. Back at the lab, the scientist reveals that Subject M was ultimately the result of NASA's project to create a human weapon. We then see that Subject M is alive and well, but he's become feral after Doogie's latest failed experiment. Meanwhile, the dust settles after the Grail's attack on the hideout. Daewoo lets go of Paul and wades through the fog to look for Huey. Surprisingly enough, he finds that Huey is still alive and gives his friend a hug. We then see that he still has a measly 3 hit points remaining. Inside Nox's base, Manhwa can't believe it when he receives a report that there are 2 Jehongdaesung currently present at the Consolation match, referring to Huey and Subject M. Seeing that Huey survived the Holy Grail's attack, Paul surmises that some weird power intervened and helped the boy survive. He then senses something not too far away, as crackles of energy form around Subject M. Meanwhile, Daewoo and Huey's reunion is interrupted when Maria appears out of nowhere to try and sucker punch him with Mama. Knowing that Huey can't take another hit, Daewoo grabs his friend and moves away from Maria's attack, barely dodging it. Daewoo manages to gain some distance from their attacker and prepares to confront Maria one-on-one. They size each other up, but Daewoo notices that he's at a disadvantage when his vision gets blurry. Still, he shakes it off just as Maria lunges for another strike aimed at Huey. Daewoo takes the hit for his friend and he gets knocked out. Maria isn't letting up, as she walks toward Huey to finish the job. Seeing this, Huey tries to summon his Monkey King armor and Yue to defend them, but it doesn't work. Paul tells Maria that she just needs one clean hit to end the boy, realizing that the Grail might not have killed Huey, but it was able to make his power disappear. Maria raises Mama and prepares to strike down Huey and Daewoo. He braces for impact, but Maria's attack doesn't connect, because Mira comes in clutch to give the female Crusader a devastating rib shot. Mira's attack is so powerful that Maria starts crying tears of blood, which forces her to activate her borrowed power, the Angel Dunamis. But Mira doesn't even give her a second to shore up her strength, as she instantly defeats Maria with her Wong-Wang swordsmanship, Junugebi technique. With Maria out of the way, Mira rushes toward her friends. She checks up on Daewoo and confirms that he's just unconscious right now before telling Huey how relieved she is that they're okay. Paul tries to bash Mira's head with a Bible, but sword beats paper and Mira slices Paul's book in half. She then thrusts her blade right at Paul, but John manages to swoop in and fly his fellow Crusaders to safety. Later, Huey begins to doubt himself, thinking that he's pulling the rest of the team down. But Daewoo reassures him that he's not a burden. All that Huey is feeling right now is fear, and according to Daewoo, it's only natural to be scared. In fact, he even admits to Huey that his one good eye is starting to fail him in the middle of their conversation. While all this is happening, John lashes out at their defeat while he continues to zip through the park in midair. Unknown to him, his ranting has caught the attention of Subject M, who grabs John by the leg and proceeds to take out the Crusaders. Back near their hideout, Shaolin is distracted after what just happened with the Grail and Team Vatican. Sugihara takes this opportunity to jump his opponent and hit him with a sweeping high kick, which Shaolin is able to dodge. But Sugihara's killer instinct kicks in, so he continues to put pressure on the Team China member. Shaolin blocks a punch from Sugihara, but this leaves him open to be caught in a tight Muay Thai clinch, as Sugihara hits him hard with a knee to the body. He follows it up with a good old-fashioned karate chop to the face before landing an upkick on his opponent's head. Sugihara tries to follow up with an overhand right to finish the job, but he gets thrown back when Shaolin summons his borrowed power, and it's none other than the spirit of the founder of Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee. In turn, Sugihara calls forth Badal Choi to assist him in battle, relishing the bout as it reminds him of classic 70s action film Fist of Fury. Sugihara and Shaolin clash, while Daewoo watches in awe at how Sugihara is able to utilize Badal Choi's power. From what he sees, Badal Choi and Sugihara use their techniques for firm defense, with no wasted movement in between. At that moment, Badal Choi and Sugihara prove that real martial arts beats Hollywood any day, as they use a technique simply called Death Blow to absolutely wreck Bruce Lee and Shaolin. Daewoo further analyzes Sugihara's display, but the Team Japan member suddenly grabs him and accuses Daewoo of trying to commune with his borrowed power. Midori sees this and tries to de-escalate things, but Kyoichi tells her to check on Huey instead. Hearing this, Mira warns Midori to keep her hands off her friend, but her attention is diverted when Faye arrives with an unconscious Mei Lin on his back. Mira asks Faye what he's doing, considering that he already forfeited their fight earlier. The leader of Team China then has a really dark flashback about his, Mei Lin, and Shaolin's past. We find out that the three of them had their organs harvested when they were kids and sold on the black market. Still, they were just thankful to be alive. They then established an orphanage, and even though Faye admits he doesn't really care about what happens to the kids they're fostering, at least they're safe from being forced black market organ donors. In the present, Faye accepts the fact that today might be the day he dies, so he decides to go out swinging and prepares to fight Mira once again. Mira focuses up, vowing she'll do everything to protect her friends. Meanwhile, Mei Lin spots that no one is protecting Huey right now, what with Daewoo and Sugihara having a confrontation right beside him. Faye and Mira clash, and the Team China leader thinks he has the upper hand when he uses his Unwoldo Stage 28 Ilgi To technique. He slashes Mira with his glaive and it connects, hitting Mira in the midsection and breaking her sword. What Faye didn't know was that Mira knew how to fight dirty, as he realizes that she has summoned Yopo Bong Sung to impale Faye from behind. Mira recovers and remembers Ryu's words about how she just has to focus on getting stronger by any means necessary. Mira then tells Faye to just shut his mouth and stay down. Her opponent tries to reply by saying he still has another technique up his sleeve, but he stumbles to the ground mid-sentence. Meanwhile, Mei Lin grabs Huey from behind to try and kidnap him, but Mira summons Red Toma to stomp the Team China member into the ground. Seeing what was about to happen, Mira remarks that she expected Team China to do something scummy like that. Witnessing how Mira is absolutely destroying their opponents one by one, Daewoo wonders if her newfound strength comes from the divine pellet she took after coming back from the Sage Realm. Mira then turns to Sugihara to tell him to lay his hands off Daewoo if he doesn't want to end up like Team China's scrubs. Sugihara tries to pick a fight with Mira, but Kyoichi approaches him and tells him to stop it and come to his side. Sugihara lashes out, but he folds when Kyoichi gives him a death stare that sends chills down the spine of everyone around who sees it. We then get confirmation that Team China has been eliminated from the Consolation match after all its members were taken out of commission. Still, Kyoichi immediately reverts to his usual friendly self and politely asks Sugihara to drop his beef with Daewoo and just come to his side. Cooler heads prevail, as Sugihara finally lets go of Daewoo. After that, he and Huey rush to Mira when she collapses from exhaustion. They praise Mira's performance, with Huey telling her how it's so much more impressive that she and Daewoo are able to overcome their fear of death and put their lives on the line whenever they fight. Mira then notices that her vision's crystal clear in spite of the fact that she's not wearing her glasses. Daewoo tells her that it's probably because of the divine pellet she took, but that she should be careful in case it has any side effects. The three friends take the time to enjoy one another's company, and Daewoo asks Huey if he can use acupuncture to heal them the way the original Jinmori does. Huey tries to perform it but fails, and in the middle of all this lighthearted conversation, Daewoo notices his vision getting blurrier. Unknown to them, Midori has just scanned Huey and Team Japan realizes that his powers are completely gone. Somewhere else, we find that Alexandros is losing his battle against Dante, as the Knight of Malta keeps regenerating whenever he damages him. Dante prepares to blast Alexandros, and he knows he won't be able to block it anymore. We then get the reveal that Natasha and Violetta aren't just a couple of regular old groupies. For one, Natasha is able to use her borrowed power, Jupiter, to summon the sacred shield Anguilla and protect Alexandros from Dante's attack. However, Anguilla is not nearly enough to block Dante's energy blast, as Alexandros watches Natasha's arms gradually get cut up when it breaches the shield. Then, we discover that Violetta is also another borrowed power user with the ability to summon a griffin. She rides it to swoop in and rescue Alexandros to his surprise. Violetta then tells the Macedonian fighter to take one last look at Natasha, the woman who truly loved him, because this is the last time he's going to see her. That's because Natasha has chosen to stay behind and act as Alexandros and Violetta's rear guard to give them enough time to escape the Knights of Malta. Natasha then has a flashback to when she first met Alexandros. In the present, she feels Anguilla cracking and giving way to Dante's energy blast, as she thanks Alexandros for sharing the happiest time of her life with him. Suddenly, Alexandros drops down from the griffin in a last-ditch effort to try and rescue Natasha. He gets past one Knight of Malta but falls short in stopping Dante's attack when another Knight blocks his path. With no other choice, Alexandros summons his magical horse, Alexander III Bucephalus, to ride away with Violetta and escape the Knights of Malta. But before leaving, Alexandros tosses his hat at Natasha and professes his love for her. In the end, Anguilla breaks and Natasha gets caught in Dante's blast, which completely takes her out. Seeing this, Alexandros can only scream as he sees her die while he and Violetta get as far away from their enemies as possible. Shortly after that, one of the Knights of Malta checks in on their teammate that Alexandros punched earlier. He signals to Dante that he's dead, and Dante responds by seemingly absorbing the dead guy's body into himself. This heals Dante's injuries and, curiously enough, we see the green crystal peppered around the venue reacting when Dante performed this. Afterwards, the two remaining members of Team Malta walk away from the scene. We then get an update on which teams remain during the Consolation match. Aside from Team Malta, who's now down a member, Team Macedonia is also active in the competition. But with the death of Natasha, Alexandros and Violetta are the only ones remaining in their group. Then there's Team Houston's Subject M, who we see has just taken out all the members of Team Vatican. Still, we see Paul's book opening and glowing purple when this happens. Apart from them, both Team Korea and Team Japan are still in the game, with both teams having all of their respective members intact. Meanwhile, Huey informs his friends that he felt the original Jinmori's vibe coming from some distance away from their location. He and Dewey prepare to check it out, but Mira convinces them to take a load off and recuperate from the injuries for now. Dewey realizes that Mira has a point, so he agrees with their plan to just rest for now. Mira wonders if there's a place where they can at least have a proper shower. Kyoichi hears this and invites Team Korea to a place he knows within the park. Not long after that, Teams Japan and Korea arrive at a public bath that Sugihara was able to discover while doing some scouting around the Consolation matches area. Midori and Mira are in the women's bath, and the shamaness puts talismans on Mira's wounds before getting in the bath to help her recover from her injuries. Inside the men's area, Kyoichi invites Huey to his family's ryokan, a traditional Japanese inn, after seeing how much he enjoys soaking in the bath. Huey then notices Dewey's right eye and apologizes for not being able to protect him from the king's attack back then. But Dewey changes the subject and instead asks Huey if it's possible that he may disappear in case the real Jinmori dies. Huey thinks it's possible, but he's not entirely sure. Dewey, on the other hand, has another idea. You see, he has a theory that if the real Jinmori dies, then it's possible that any one of his clones can take his place and become the real one. This all stems from that one instance when he heard that the king had confirmed the death of the Monkey King once. Huey entertains the idea and remembers the dream he had about the real Jinmori. In it, Mori told Huey to hurry and wake up, possibly referring to the fact that Huey must take his place as the real Monkey King after the events in the Sage Realm. Back at the women's bath, Mira feels Midori's talismans working. She then asks if Midori and Kyoichi are childhood friends. We then find out that Midori's real name is Midori Yada, and she comes from a family of shamans tasked with keeping an eye on Kyoichi and the Kusanagi family. It turns out that the Kusanagi family, on the other hand, is responsible for sealing Yamada no Orochi within the bodies of their firstborn sons for generations. So in case a Kusanagi like Kyoichi loses control of his borrowed power, it's up to Midori and her family to stop the mythical serpent from wreaking havoc in the world. Mira then inquires about what would happen if Kyoichi loses control of Yamada no Orochi, and Midori informs her that she'll do her duty and kill Kyoichi if that comes to pass. Afterwards, Mira asks Midori how they've come to know Sugihara. In the meantime, Sugihara performs kata, a training method in Kyokushin karate, while they're in the bath. Midori then reveals that Sugihara is a hafu, a Japanese term for a person who comes from two different cultural backgrounds. In particular, Sugihara is Korean-Japanese. He used to attend a Korean school in Japan, but then transferred to Korea after that. A year later though, Sugihara went back to Japan and started attending a Japanese school where he met both Midori and Kyoichi. Mira asks Midori why Sugihara decided to come back to Japan after migrating to Korea. And Midori surmises that it was because he felt like an outsider while he was in Korea as well. At the men's bath, Sugihara finishes showing Dewey his kata and tells him that it's similar to the dances of the Four Guardians, except it's more efficient because it doesn't waste any of your energy. Sugihara leaves and Dewey thinks that it's Sugihara's way of apologizing for trying to pick a fight with him earlier. The next day, Team Japan and Team Korea decide to end their alliance now that Huey has lost his powers. They bid their farewells and prepare to go their separate ways, but they're interrupted when an earth-shaking footstep rocks the area. They turn around to see that the feral Subject M has appeared before them. Subject M then approaches Team Korea from behind in the blink of an eye. Thinking he's a threat, Mira tries to pull out her sword, but Huey convinces her to give him some time to deal with the ape-man. Huey feels the original Jinmori's vibe within Subject M. The ape-man lets out a loud roar, but Huey just outstretches his hand in front of him. And, surprisingly enough, Subject M calms down and kneels before Huey. Huey then tells everyone that it's all cool because he was able to commune with Subject M. He then explains that the ape-man carries the same vibe as Jinmori. Daewoo and Mira wonder what's going on with Subject M, considering that their nano devices show that his name's Michael and he's part of Team USA. Midori then uses her abilities to get a grip on Subject M and discovers that, 1, he's not exactly a non-human. Midori feels that he's an artificially made creature created by other humans. At that point, Mira and the others notice that Subject M seems to only listen to Huey. In fact, the ape-man gets all chummy with him and even shakes his hand. With that all sorted out, Kyoichi and Team Japan go their own way and tell Team Korea that they'll most likely be enemies the next time they meet. Shortly after, Mira checks up on Huey and asks him if his powers are now okay. Huey says he still feels the same as before. She then asks the clone if he knows how to use renewal taekwondo like the real Jinmori. They conduct a test to see if that's the case, but immediately find out that Huey has no idea how to use the martial art. Still, Mira thinks that it's interesting that Huey has certain distinct qualities that sets him apart from the original. After their test, Subject M suddenly gets agitated when he senses footsteps coming from a short distance away. Huey tries to calm him down, but he senses that the ape-man is scared of something as Huey taps into Subject M's memories and sees what Dante did to him earlier. Huey tries to comfort the ape-man, but he lets out an energy blast from his mouth directed at someone not far away from them. It turns out that Subject M has been sensing Dante's approach all along, which precipitated this sudden outburst. Afterwards, the dust settles and Huey notices that Gyeondaewon is forming above him. Not only that, but he witnesses the Monkey King armor manifesting on Subject M. The ape-man has another panic attack and lets out a loud roar. But all of a sudden, Subject M's right arm falls off. Tendrils then form around the stump left by his missing arm, which then starts wrapping around Huey and pulling him into Subject M. Mira and Daewoo try to cut off the tendrils, but they just continue to pull Huey until he gets absorbed into the ape-man's body. Seeing Huey slowly fusing with Subject M's body prompts Mira to rush in and try to rescue her friend. However, Daewoo suddenly grabs her hand and pulls her away just as Gyeondaewon's lightning bolts strike the ground. They barely evade it, and Daewoo just thinks they're lucky that Subject M wasn't aiming Gyeondaewon's lightning directly at them. Still, Mira tells Daewoo to look after himself after remembering the prophecy that Midori told her before. Daewoo asks her if something happened that made Mira overprotective of him, but their conversation is cut short when another bright flash of lightning from Gyeondaewon strikes some distance away. They turn to see that Subject M is now in the middle of a burning forest, as the creature rides and continues summoning more lightning bolts from Gyeondaewon. Mira notices that Subject M is targeting something not too far away and wonders what's over there. We then get a glimpse of severed limbs that are left after the lightning bolt struck the area, while at the same time, Nox worshippers inside their home base panic as they report that they can't get a signal from the Knights of Malta. Mandok, on the other hand, continues to think how it's possible that there are two Monkey Kings present at the same time. He then calls for Bishop R, but the man is nowhere to be found, because at this very moment, Bishop R has gone to the King's chambers. He opens the doors to the King's room and is amused when he sees something inside it. While this is happening, Huey gets a vision from the past where an astronaut lands on the moon to find the remains of a gigantic creature on its surface. The creature is impaled through its skull by a giant pillar, which resembles none other than the Monkey King's staff. It's this same giant humanoid form and pillar that NASA scientists are tinkering with in the present, the same artifacts that they used to create Subject M. Huey continues to see the vision within Subject M's mind and discovers that the US promptly experimented on the giant creature and pillar they found on the dark side of the moon. They started calling it Gigantes and Monolith. A scientist explains in a flashback that they were able to gather DNA samples from the two gargantuan artifacts. When his colleagues from the US government asked him what exactly Gigantes and Monolith are, all the scientists can say is that they're gods. From then on, the United States of America decided to continue studying Gigantes and Monolith in hopes of cooking up an army made of gods. They started calling it Project God and made sure that it remains a closely guarded secret, something that not even the President of the US is aware of. Over time, the United States kept pouring funding towards Project God, which eventually amounted to $1 trillion. Still, they weren't getting any results from their experiments. Then there came a time when Michael and Doogie arrived in the picture. Michael was diagnosed with a terminal disease at the time, while Doogie had just been promoted as head of Project God. During one of Michael's medical consultations, his doctor proposed that the only way for Michael to survive his illness is to take drastic measures. That is to say, he offered Doogie to conduct experiments on Michael using the DNA from Gigantes and Monolith. This way, Project God would finally yield some results after years of research and exorbitant amounts of funding, all the while allowing Doogie to save his brother. Doogie accepted this offer and went to work. Eventually, Doogie injected Michael with an initial dose of the DNA samples from the artifacts on the moon. To him, this was a way for Doogie to give back to his brother after Michael protected him all these years. In the present, Huey wakes up and recognizes that he just saw all of Subject M's memories. Dewey tries to pull him out of the ape-man's body, while Mira distracts the rampaging beast with her sword. However, Mira notices that none of her attacks can pierce the Monkey King armor that Subject M is wearing. She starts to get pressured when she realizes that there's no way they can save Huey if the armor manages to cover up Subject M's stump. Meanwhile, Dewey desperately tries to wake up Huey. He does so, but more tendrils come after Huey and pull him right back into Subject M's body. And suffice it to say at this point that Subject M has become fully engulfed by rage, as the only thing running in his mind are Doogie's words telling him to eradicate all their enemies and to never lose. Subject M reabsorbs Huey, but he's forced to spew him out when an explosion rocks his stump and blows it open. Mira and Dewey turn to see that Team Japan has doubled back to help them deal with the raging ape-man. Kyoichi reveals that Midori planted a talisman on Subject M earlier as a safety measure. He then tells Team Korea that they're going to reform their alliance, since they feel bad that they really didn't do anything to help Team Korea earlier. Mira welcomes all the help they can get, as Subject M lashes out and starts attacking anyone in his path. He attacks Team Japan with a devastating punch, but they're able to jump away in time to dodge it. All of a sudden, Subject M's stump grows a tendril and launches it towards Koichi and Sugihara. Midori rushes to their aid and activates a barrier to protect her teammates, but the tendril gets past her shield and hits her side. Meanwhile, Mira tries to slash the ape-man's back with her sword, but the Monkey King armor has rendered him impervious to any damage. Kyoichi and Sugihara check up on Midori and notice that the tendril from Subject M's body is starting to penetrate Midori's body. If they pull it out, it's just going to cause more damage. Kyoichi starts to fear for Midori's life, but the shamaness reminds him that she's not going to die here because she didn't see it in one of her visions. But Kyoichi isn't hearing any of this. Instead, he decides to take off his bandana and put matters into his own hands to stop Subject M. Midori knows that Kyoichi is planning on unleashing Yamada no Orichi and tries to stop him, but he reassures her that he has things under control. Meanwhile, Huey recovers as Dewey helps him get back on his feet. Mira parries and blocks Subject M's attacks and desperately tells her friends to get out of there while she distracts the beast. Subject M then stops wreaking havoc for a second when Kyoichi taps him on his side. Everyone sees that Kyoichi's features have changed, as his face now resembles something a bit more reptilian. He then challenges Subject M to a duel. The ape-man tries to punch Kyoichi, but he effortlessly stops the monster's fist with his bare hand before unleashing 50% of his borrowed power. A split second later, a swirl of black energy forms in front of Kyoichi, which sends Subject M crashing towards Songyudo Park's management office. The ape-man recoils from the hit, but Kyoichi doesn't let up. He lunges at the beast and hits him with a knee to the body. He then starts forming hand seals and sends Subject M crashing through the building and hundreds of feet away. Still, Kyoichi continues to put pressure on his enemy, as he summons Kusanagi and prepares to hit the ape-man with a vertical slash. At the same time, Subject M recovers and launches an energy blast directed at Kyoichi, but the leader of Team Japan just repels this and cleaves Subject M in half with the power of Kusanagi. In fact, Kyoichi's national treasure proves to be so powerful that it even slices the ground beneath them in half. Mira sees all of this and can't believe her eyes when she notices how Kyoichi was able to penetrate the Monkey King's armor. Kyoichi then teleports right on top of Subject M and stabs the beast with Kusanagi before summoning Yamada no Orochi to devour him. All of a sudden, meat tendrils latch onto Kyoichi's back. He turns around to see that Subject M was able to duplicate himself and that the one Kyoichi has just defeated was a clone of the monster. Subject M laughs maniacally, pleased at how clever he is. But Kyoichi counterattacks with another slash of his Kusanagi, which forces Subject M to create more copies of himself and attack the Japanese warrior. In response, Kyoichi activates a technique called Kusanagi Style Venom Bite to take out the horde of ape-men in front of him. Subject M tries to sneak behind Kyoichi, but he simply dodges out of the way and slices off his arm. Kyoichi then continues hacking away more Subject M clones before upping his borrowed power's output to 80%. The ground beneath each Subject M clone opens up and forms a circle around them, as Kyoichi performs hand seals. This technique culminates with the circular patterns blowing each and every one of the clones to bits until only the original Subject M is left standing. He then blasts off Subject M's arms as he walks towards the beast. Subject M appears to beg for mercy while he regenerates his missing body parts just as Kyoichi is about to unleash a technique called Kusanagi Style 108 Snake Trap to finish the job. The leader of Team Japan's technique is interrupted though when he feels something pierce his side. A short distance away, Huey looks on and sees that Subject M has summoned Yui and expanded it to strike Kyoichi. Seeing this, Sugihara jumps in with Badal Choi and uses Kyokushin Karate, breaking 100 bricks to separate Yui from his teammate. Subject M then gets back the magical staff and lifts it with one hand, preparing to slam it down on his enemies. In turn, Kyoichi summons the full might of Yamato no Orichi to stop Yui mid-swing, while Sugihara rushes to Subject M's location for a counterattack. He punches the beast, and Dewey follows suit to provide backup. Kyoichi then activates Kusanagi-style Ghost Slash to slice off the Monkey King's armor. And with Subject M's body exposed, Mira jumps in to strike the ape-man with Wolwang swordsmanship, Lunar Halo, and chop off his arm. This causes Yui to crash right on top of Subject M. The impact causes a large tremor, and in the aftermath, Team Japan and Team Korea think they've won the battle. But then, flashes of lightning start forming around the area and they find out that Subject M has fully recovered yet again. Kyoichi lunges at the ape-man and unleashes 90% of his borrowed power before striking. We also find out that the rest of his friends and allies have been protected from Gyondawun's lightning bolts with a technique called Kusanagi Orichi, Snake Egg, covering Mira and the others in a protective shell. Midori weakly pleads with Kyoichi to stop using his abilities for fear of losing control. Meanwhile, Subject M is able to block Kyoichi's Kusanagi with Yoi, which causes the mythical blade to break. Kyoichi can't believe his eyes when he sees that Kusanagi has been snapped in two. Subject M tries to attack him, but the beast is hit with Wolwang swordsmanship, Lunar Halo from behind. Not far away, Mira sees that Huey has copied her technique, while Kyoichi witnesses that he picked up Kusanagi's broken blade to use it against Subject M. Huey then launches another attack, and this time he's able to copy Kyoichi's Kusanagi-style Ghost Slash to punish the rampaging monster. Still, Huey pleads with Subject M to calm down and stop lashing out at them. However, he doesn't get through to the ape-man as Subject M turns around and tries to smash Huey with its large fists. Huey jumps back and activates another newly copied technique. This time he unleashes Kusanagi-style Venom Bite and slices up Subject M with a flurry of slashes. This leaves the ape-man open for Huey to follow up with Wolwang swordsmanship, Sleet. It hits Subject M at point-blank range, as it lets out a huge scream of pain from Huey's barrage. Meanwhile, Mira and Dewey decide to provide their friend with much-needed backup. Although Huey appears to be winning their clash, they know that the half-day rest they had earlier is not nearly enough for Huey to have recovered his full health. According to Dewey, it's most likely that Huey was only able to regain about 30 hit points after they took a load off. And without the protection of the Monkey King's armor, that would mean Subject M will only need a single hit to land on Huey to knock him out. In the middle of the battlefield, Huey delivers a solid body shot to Subject M as he bobs and weaves through the ape-man's successive combos. It appears he can read Subject M's thoughts while they fight, as he finds out that the ape-man isn't rampaging out of anger, it's actually scared and is trying to protect itself. Subject M tries to punch Huey, and he barely manages to dodge it, as the hit rips a part of his shirt away. Still, Huey isn't giving up hope. He continues to plead with Subject M to stop, letting the ape-man know that he doesn't want to fight, because he understands how the beast feels. Huey continues to dodge Subject M's attacks, all the while telling the ape-man that they both want the same thing, to live. Huey then channels another copy technique, this time hitting Subject M with Sugihara and Badal Choi's Kyokushin Karate, breaking 100 bricks technique, giving the ape-man a 12-6 elbow right in the back of the head. Still, it's not enough to stop the rampaging beast. Subject M immediately recovers and grabs Huey by the arms. The monster was just about to rip Huey in two when a powerful wave of energy blasts him away. Mira and Dewey turn to see that Kyoichi's back in action, and he now has a bunch of spectral snakes springing from his back. Subject M sees him and tries to assault the wielder of Yamato no Orochi's power. They clash to a standstill, and Kyoichi finds an opening for one of Yamato no Orochi's heads to swallow Subject M whole. However, the ape-man brute forces his way out of the giant snake's body by forming a huge tendril that bursts through Yamato no Orochi's body and grabs Kyoichi. With Kyoichi in his grip, Subject M tightens his hold on his enemy and almost crushes his bones. In fact, Kyoichi is only saved when one of Yamato no Orochi's heads manages to bite off the tendril and sever its connection to Subject M. But there's one new problem that our heroes face. They notice that even Subject M's discarded flesh has become super acidic that it can now melt stone. In the middle of the battlefield, Subject M lets out a loud roar as he expands and ejects more flesh tendrils from his arms. Huey can see that the ape-man is in extreme pain, while Sugihara rushes in to rescue the downed Kyoichi. Subject M tries to set himself upon Sugihara, but Dewey punches him from behind. It doesn't damage the ape-man, but it's just enough to distract him to allow Sugihara and Kyoichi to get to safety. Seeing Dewey, Subject M tries to punch him, but Mira is able to get between them and slice off the ape-man's arm with her sword. But they're not out of trouble yet, because Subject M instantly teleports and prepares to smash them with another strike. With not even a second to move, Mira and Dewey can only brace for impact, but they're surprised to see that Subject M's attack didn't hit them, because Huey planted himself in between and ate up their enemy's deadly strike. The attack leaves Huey with a measly 3 hit points remaining and a huge chunk of his side missing, but he continues to protect his best friends by lifting a slab of rock from the ground to protect them from Subject M's tendril. Huey strains as he holds the line. He tells Dewey and Mira that he's done for anyway, so the two of them had better save themselves while he keeps Subject M busy. Huey thanks his two friends for being so kind to him, teaching him many things and basically treating him no different than the original Jin Mori. But instead of running away, Dewey and Mira help Huey hold the stone shield in front of them and tell the clone that there's no way they're leaving him. Huey's going to keep living on with them. Huey is absolutely touched by all this, and knowing that there's no way they can all survive this attack, he uses Dewey's kick of the Red Phoenix to send his two friends away from Subject M's attack, sacrificing himself instead. Dewey and Mira look on as Huey tells him that this is what he wants, to save the people closest to him. A split second later, Subject M's flesh tendril topples him and seemingly dies right in front of Dewey and Mira. However, Huey starts to get a vision from the real Jin Mori, who tells him the basics of a powerful technique. Buried underneath a lump of Subject M's flesh, Huey is then able to use Jin Mori's trademark renewal Taekwondo, Hui Chuk technique, and kick his way free. Hui Chuk's impact sends a wave of energy towards Subject M and engulfs the beast. All the while, we see the real Jin Mori in a different dimension, sitting on his Yui, as he gives Huey his approval. And with that, Subject M's reign of terror comes to an end, as the ape-man's body gives out and starts to melt in front of Huey. He watches the poor ape-man beg and plead about how he wants to live. Suddenly, Kyoichi appears out of nowhere to finish off Subject M, but Huey gives him a death stare that forces him to stop. It's a stare so intense that Kyoichi easily recognizes that the Monkey King is right in front of him, which even causes Yamada no Orochi to dissipate. He turns around when he hears Sugihara scream Midori's name. That's because at this very moment, the tendril launched in her body has started to melt, just like Subject M's main body. But there's one huge problem. It also ended up melting Midori's flesh and internal organs in the process. Meanwhile, Subject M crawls towards Huey and gives him a hug. Mira tries to rush in, thinking the ape-man is going to attack Huey again, but he tells her that it's cool. Huey knows that Subject M was trying to protect him, and he hugs the dying ape-man back. Dr. Doogie then appears out of nowhere and desperately tries to save his brother. He tells Subject M to just hang in there for a bit longer because he thinks he's got the right drug to perfect their experiment. Doogie then produces a syringe containing another drug made from the Monkey King's DNA, telling Subject M that he's going to make everything alright when they get back to the United States. But it's too late. Subject M dies in front of Doogie, but not before telling the doctor that he's going to protect him. Huey then starts chastising Doogie for using his brother for his experiments. He reveals that the reason their DNA match was identical was because it's a side effect from Huey being a clone. Doogie then starts blaming Huey for the death of his brother and vows to get his revenge on Huey. It all comes to nothing though, because a blade suddenly pierces Doogie right through the chest. He and Huey turn to find that Mandoc did it, and the Nox member has intervened in the Consolation match to take the Monkey King's DNA sample from Doogie. Mandoc literally rips off Doogie's hand along with the syringe and steals all of his research data from Project God. The process causes Doogie excruciating pain, which forces Huey's hand to confront Mandoc. So he points his right hand at Mandoc's throat and asks him how illegal it is for a tournament administrator like him to kill one of the participants. Mandoc answers by telling Huey that Team Houston was the one who broke the rules first when they signed up a non-human, Subject M, for the Consolation match. Huey hears this and tells Mandoc that he should kill him as well, considering that he's non-human too. But Mandoc just replies and tells him to buzz off and go complain to the God of High School Tournament Committee. Mandoc then teleports, but Huey's able to follow suit and grab the Nox executive. He tells Mandoc that he can leave whenever he wants as long as he hands back the Monkey King's DNA sample. Mandoc is surprised that Huey is able to read his teleportation location and follow him, but he doesn't show it. Instead, he tells Huey that he still owes the Monkey King one after their last encounter. Mandoc suddenly summons his trademark giant sword to try and crush Huey from behind, all the while telling him that it's payback time. The gigantic sword crashes on the ground along with Huey. Mandoc starts listing off excuses about why he lost their last encounter, but reassures that he's going to kick Huey's butt now that there's nothing and no one to interfere with their duel. Mandoc then tells Huey how much easier it is to take him out now that the taboo has been lifted. All of a sudden, Huey senses something from outer space, as Mandoc has just summoned a Nephilim to throw a giant sword right at Huey's location. Huey responds this by using Yoi to expand, which protects Earth from the Nephilim sword and absolutely crushes the Nephilim itself. However, Mandoc fights dirty and takes the few moments that Huey is distracted to stab his opponent with a sword of his own. But Huey reveals that he was bluffing when he appeared to let his guard down in front of Mandoc, as he fully summons the Monkey King's armor before giving the Nox executive a body blow that knocks the wind out of him. Huey's not done either. With his fist still stuck to Mandoc's midsection, he immediately summons Gyeondaewon to wrap around him and trap the Nox executive inside. Afterwards, let's just say that everything Mandoc has set up until this point were empty threats, as Huey literally cooks him with Gyeondaewon's lightning bolts within the cloud cage. When his barrage ends, we find Huey holding Mandoc by the collar. Surprisingly enough, Mandoc is still conscious, as he praises the power of the Monkey King. It turns out that Mandoc was planning this all along. Remember those green crystals peppering the entire area of the Consolation match? Well, it's revealed that Mandoc is using this to gather the Monkey King's energy. And since Huey has thrown everything at him up to this point, the crystals have activated. In fact, the crystals even start sucking off energy from everyone it can find, such as the eliminated contestants hanging out at the park's basement. They then transfer the energy to none other than Dante, who grows more powerful as he absorbs it. Mandoc then reveals that the crystals are made from the same substance as the Dragon Ridge that they encountered in the Sage Realm. He then escapes Huey's grasp, while Dante ambushes Doogie and starts sucking off his life force until only a husk is left. Huey sees this, so he springs into action and tries to whack the Knight of Malta with Yoi. Meanwhile, Mandoc uses a technique called Omnificence on Midori to keep her alive. The Nox executive then offers Team Japan a deal: Midori's life in exchange for getting rid of Team Korea. Meanwhile, Huey is surprised when he witnesses Dante grab Yoi with his bare hand mid-swing. He then mercilessly pops Doogie's head like a cherry, which enrages Huey. Back inside Sunyudo Park's basement, the eliminated Consolation match contestants start falling like flies. A few of them demand to see the tournament's organizers, considering that they broke the agreement to keep the participants alive. A riot almost breaks out, but the contestants stop when they see a group of Nox worshippers enter the room and block the door. One of them demands to see their manager, but one of the Nox worshippers replies by telling him he's God's parasite. Suddenly, the green crystals around the basement activate and start sucking off the life force of each and everyone inside the room. A lone survivor remains and begs the Nox worshippers to let him go. Being the dirty freaks that they are, they toy with the survivor and pretend to allow him to leave the basement before ganging up and stabbing him to death. Outside, Mira tells Koichi and Sugihara not to trust Mandoc because he'll surely screw them over after he gets what he wants. Mandoc subdues Mira with her power, but Dewi arrives to continue telling Team Japan that Mandoc and all of Nox are just a bunch of jerks who won't keep their promises. Koichi remains silent through all this while he weighs his options. At the same time, Mandoc thinks to himself about how Dante will now easily be able to defeat Huey, since the clone has already spent too much energy fighting him. Meanwhile, Mira notes that Huey appears to be much better at controlling his feelings compared to the original Jin Mori when she sees him witness Dante murdering Doogie. However, Dewi reminds Mira about their past encounter with Team Jihu and points out that Huey might look calm now, but he's absolutely livid deep inside. In the middle of the battlefield, Dante opens up their clash with a flying knee to Huey's face. He follows it with a gut punch that sends the clone crashing into the ground before grabbing Huey by the neck. Thinking he's won, Dante is taken by surprise when Huey suddenly recovers and plants his knee in the Knight of Malta's midsection. Dante's ribs literally break from the hit, while Huey tells him he's no better than the king before rocking him with a punch to the face. And this is no ordinary punch, people, because Huey corkscrews his fist around Dante's mug to activate Renewal Taekwondo, Screw Punch, and send the Knight of Malta flying. Dante skids several feet away before getting back on his feet, but Huey teleports right behind him for another cracking punch to the face. Huey even talks trash and tells Dante to clench his teeth, because he might lose all of them once he's done beating him to a pulp. And from there, it's all ground and pound from the Monkey King, as he goes on a full mount and smashes Dante with repeated strikes to the head. Dante's teammate tries to finger stab Huey from behind, but the Monkey King is having none of it. He locks the scrub's arm and breaks it with a 12-6 elbow, telling the masked Team Malta member to stay out of it. Dante is frozen in shock. He can't do anything when Huey towers above him and uses the kick of the Red Phoenix to curb stomp his head. Mira sees all this and declares that Huey probably doesn't need their help right now. When she turns around, she finds out that Kyoichi and Sugihara have made their decision. They've taken Mandoc's offer. Kyoichi tells Mira that he believes they understand why they're doing this. Mira reminds him that Mandoc is just going to screw them over, but Sugihara admits that they have to try anything they can to save Midori. Meanwhile, Judge P reports that the green crystals have been activated at the park, and it's taken out a lot of the contestants' participants. Mujin then receives a call from the other judges to update him with the respective missions. Judge Q tells him that he's secured Sector 25 as he sits in front of one of the giant green crystals. Judge O has Sector 37 under control as well, while Judge S has just wrapped up securing Sector 5. Judge O asks Mujin what Nox is planning with the crystals, and Mujin reveals that the cult is using it to exterminate all borrowed power users throughout the world. Aside from that, the crystals allow Nox to gather energy that the crystals steal from borrowed power users. Mujin then tells his subordinates that they're going to stop Nox by any means necessary, as he orders to start their counterattack against the shady cult. While this is happening, Mira is locked in a duel with Kyoichi. She leaps several steps back after taking a few hits from Kusanagi, as her opponent asks her if she's willing to concede defeat now and end the bloodshed. In reply, Mira admits that she too doesn't want to hurt Kyoichi, but throws back the question right at him. Kyoichi then reveals that Kusanagi was specifically made to contain Yamada no Orochi. Now that it's broken, he's free to freely unleash its full power. He knows that the mythical serpent might overcome him, but Kyoichi also lets Mira know that's not going to happen, because Huey managed to suppress Yamada no Orochi within him earlier when he gave him that death stare. Kyoichi goes on to explain more about his powers to his opponent, but Mira cuts him off and tells him that men who like to boast about their strength are a major turnoff for her. All of a sudden, Yamada no Orochi springs out of the wound that Kyoichi left on Mira's leg. Back at Dewi, he and Sugihara are busy having their own close combat encounter. Dewi notices that Sugihara isn't messing around, giving that he's focusing on attacking his blind spots. Sugihara then tells Dewi that he's surprised he didn't choose to face off against Koichi. Dewi answers this with a couple of strikes that Sugihara manages to dodge. He then locks Dewi in a Muay Thai clinch and tries to knee him in the body, all the while telling his opponent that Koichi is stronger than him. According to Sugihara, he seriously thought that Dewi was going to go full White Knight on Mira and protect her from Team Japan's strongest member. Dewi tells Sugihara that he talks a lot, as his opponent sweeps him with a kick to the back of the leg. Sugihara prepares to follow up on the attack, but Dewi hits him with a knee to the face that lands hard on his opponent's face. Sugihara has no choice but to reset their clash, as Dewi tells him that he's got things twisted. According to him, he purposefully chose not to get in Mira's way, because she's much stronger than him. That is to say, she's more than enough to handle Koichi on her own. In the meantime, Yamada no Orochi threatens to devour Mira, but she uses a technique called Wolwang swordsmanship Galaxy Split to move at supersonic speed and chop off each of the serpent's heads in the blink of an eye. Dewi, on the other hand, isn't doing so hot right now. He can feel his vision getting blurry as he faces off with Sugihara, but like always, he shakes it off and gets his head back in the game. At the same time, Huey continues to give Dante the business. He assaults him with a couple of unanswered strikes. Dante's teammate recovers, but Huey easily fends off the interloper while putting hands on Dante. Huey then grabs the King's Son and uses renewal Taekwondo Orang, an elbow strike that absolutely smashes Dante's face. On top of that, Huey goes for renewal Taekwondo Nagawa kick and hits his opponent square in the chin. While in midair, he then targets the other Knight of Malta and stomps his head in when he lands. This causes the Knight's mask to crack, while Dante takes advantage of the distraction to try and hit Huey with an energy blast. But he's too slow. Huey instantly counters with renewal Taekwondo Mach Punch before he can launch his projectile, eating up each long-range strike from the technique. Huey notices the other Knight grabbing his leg to subdue him, as his mask continues to crack. Dante recovers and swoops in to ambush Huey, but he calls on Yui to expand and block Dante's path. He then turns back to the other Knight, retracting Yui and summoning Gyeondaewon to trap the masked man within it. Dante tries for another backstab, but Huey beats him to the punch when Huey impales him with Yui. Huey plans on ripping apart Dante with his magical staff by making it expand while he's still impaled with it, but he cancels the technique when the masked Knight jumps behind him for an ambush. A part of the Knight's mask falls off and reveals a man with red hair underneath. Huey turns around and he's shocked to find out that the other Knight of Malta looks exactly like Dante, which leads him to think that the king has two sons. But in truth, we find out that they're not brothers at all. It's actually a clone of Dante. In fact, the king has been stocking up on Dante clones deep inside his room. We then find out that this is what Bishop R found earlier, as he walks around the king's sanctum amidst rows of Dante clones trapped in containment chambers. The two Dantes gang up on Hugh and try to finger stab him in the face, which forces the Monkey King clone to summon his Thunderbolt right where he stands. It's a wild gambit too, because although Huey is able to take out the two Dantes, he wasn't immune from the lightning bolt either. Huey takes enough damage from his own attack that he ends up losing the power of the Monkey King, reverting to his original human form. He looks at his feet to see that one Dante has grabbed the clone's arm and started to absorb its remaining life force. Huey tells himself that he has to end this bout quickly before his opponent recovers, while Dante continues to suck the life out of his clone. The clone then has a flashback and we get the reveal that the real Dante at the Consolation match isn't an original. He's a clone created by the king too. The thing is, Dante isn't a name for a person, it's actually a title that the king assigns to his favorite clone at any given point in time. The other two members of Team Malta are just a couple of Dante clones that fell out of the king's favor. So the old man simply calls them Alpha and Beta. Alpha and Beta's mission is to make sure that the current Dante succeeds in the Consolation match even at the cost of their own life. But in the present, we find out that Alpha has ignored the king's orders and instead absorbed Dante's life force into himself. He then takes on the Dante mantle and proceeds to beat the now depowered Huey with a barrage of strikes. Huey is unable to answer any of it, as the new Dante ragdolls him with punches and kicks until he grabs him by the throat. Trapped, Dante starts to torture Huey by telepathically breaking both of his arms before threatening to take out Mira and Dewi with an energy blast. Huey can't do anything about it but scream. However, Dante's arm is severed when Alexandros hits him with Phalanx one-shot, which forces him to cancel his energy blast and drop Huey. Alexandros apologizes to Huey for interfering in his war, as the remaining members of Team Macedonia arrive on the scene. Dante grows back his severed arm and proceeds to attack Alexandros. The Macedonian warrior eats up a few shots, while Huey tells himself that he just needs Alexandros to give him 5 minutes to rest so that he can reactivate his Monkey King powers again. Dante is able to get the better of Alexandros, as he telepathically subdues him. He cocks back for a finger stab and thrusts it right into the Macedonian's head. But Alexandros uses his thick forehead to break Dante's fingers and free himself from his opponent. He then grabs Dante by the hair and pulls him down. From there, Alexandros proceeds to gore Dante with some of the hardest hitting knees to the face you'll ever find in the Consolation match. Dante tries to sneak in a finger laser, but Alexandros catches on and drags him by the hair to dodge it. In a flashback, we then get the big reveal that Violetta isn't just some simple groupie like all the other girls in Alexandros' life. In fact, they've known each other since childhood, and Violetta is actually his Nuna, his senior, considering that she's a year older than him. We find out that Violetta and Alexandros used to belong to a crime syndicate that forced kids into doing shady work for them. Not only that, but Violetta used to beat up Alexandros, given that she's a senior. One day, Alexandros witnessed Violetta getting beaten up by one of their criminal adult handlers. So he grabbed a net, trapped the old man in it, and started beating him with a stick. Afterwards, Alexandros told Violetta that justice has been served. In the present, Dante sticks to his game plan, trying to shoot Alexandros with his finger gun, but it doesn't work. The Macedonian warrior just continues to thrash him around by the hair as he evades Dante's desperate attempt at a counterattack. Finally, Dante catches on and switches to an energy blast instead. Huey shouts at Alexandros and tells him that Dante's preparing for a wide-range attack. Suddenly, a devastating explosion rocks the middle of Sunyoto Park. In fact, the blast is so powerful that it ends up causing a tremor all throughout the city. In the aftermath, we find that Mandoc has taken Midori with him as they float in the air. Mira, Dewi, Kyoichi, Sugihara, and Violetta turn around to see that Huey has used his Yui to protect everyone from the debris caused by the blast. We then find out that it's impossible to offset Dante's attack. The only way to save yourself from it is to get to Dante's rear and steer clear of the blast trajectory, something that's nearly impossible to accomplish at close range. But we find out that Alexandros isn't your ordinary warrior, as he successfully does just that. Alexandros locks Dante's head with his arms as soon as he lands behind the guy and gets his opponent in a super clean rear naked choke. Alexandros reveals that he wasn't able to completely evade Dante's blast as he tightens his grip on the guy's neck. The Macedonian isn't going to take any tap-outs either, as he puts pressure on Dante's carotid artery to absolutely snuff the lights out of his enemy. With Dante seemingly dead, Alexandros declares that he's finally avenged Natasha. Huey sees all this and analyzes how Alexandros is able to properly compensate for his lack of physical strength with pure skill. Alexandros then makes sure Dante isn't breathing anymore before he lets go of the chokehold and drops his lifeless body on the ground. Suddenly, Dante gets back up and tries to use his favorite finger stab attack on Alexandros, but the Macedonian just locks Dante's arm before headbutting him and breaking it. Again, Alexandros goes for another hair grab and punishes Dante with more devastating knees to the face as he berates the clone for being beaten by someone weaker than him. As if Dante didn't learn anything from their earlier clash, he tries to go for finger lasers again, which Alexandros promptly dodges. The Macedonian then goes for another rear naked choke when he sees Dante going for another wide-range blast. But instead of pointing it in front of him, Dante aims the blast at his own body so that it would pierce through his body and hit Alexandros right behind him. The Macedonian gets sent flying after he takes a hit at such close range, while Dante's body is absolutely torn in half due to the gambit he pulled. Moments later, Dante regenerates from his injuries as he approaches Alexandros for the finishing strike. But Dante is distracted when he sees Huey nearby, warming up and doing Pumse, an exercise to calibrate your martial arts form. Huey focuses on honing his technique and follows Alexandros' cue to compensate for his lack of strength with pure technique. While he does this, the real Jinmori guides Huey by telling him the sequence of renewal taekwondo moves to incorporate in his Pumse. We even see Jinmori following suit and performing the same moves as he gets in the groove of things. At the park though, Alexandros interrupts Huey and tells him that he's still got this, because right now the Macedonian is prepared to show Dante how a real one fights. Alexandros calls Dante a fake moron, which grinds the clone's gears. So he lunges at the Macedonian and proceeds to assault him with strikes, all the while telling his opponent he's the real Dante. Meanwhile, Huey continues to perform Pumse and realizes how hard it is to keep his balance because of his broken arms. His exercise is interrupted when Mandoc suddenly leaves Midori and attacks him. Dante, on the other hand, continues to punish Alexandros with devastating body shots. He gets bored and prepares to finish his opponent with another patented finger gun, but Alexandros recovers and hits Dante with a headbutt. They reset their clash, and Alexandros dodges another finger laser from Dante before smacking him in the face with an overhand right. The Macedonian then decides to pull out all of the stops and fight dirty. He uses Dante's cloak against him, wrapping it around his opponent to subdue the guy before hitting him with a few punches. However, Alexandros' combo is broken when Dante blindly goes for a Hail Mary and blindly shoots a finger laser, which hits Alexandros' gut by chance. The Macedonian recoils from the hit and allows Dante to reset. The Macedonian wastes no time and lunges right at the clone again to give him another punch to the head. He gets pumped up when he recalls how Natasha sacrificed herself for him, as he continues to wail on Dante and call him a fake. Dante gravely insists that he's the real one, and the two combatants start trading blows. Off in the distance, Violetta can only pray to Natasha's soul to protect Alexandros. Back at Team Korea and Team Japan, Mira notices that Kyoichi's power levels might even be higher than a Nox priest. At the same time, she loses her focus when she remembers Midori's prophecy. But Mira's a true warrior. She turns the situation around and uses all these thoughts as fuel to keep fighting. So Mira attacks Kyoichi and pressures him with successive slashes that forces her opponent to go on the defensive. Mira's assault culminates when she uses a technique called Yopo Bang Chawaguk before gearing up for one final slash. Kyoichi sees her change her stance, which leads him to think he has an opening for a counterattack. But Mira's speed edges him out as she dashes forth and slices him clean through his midsection. It's not over yet though, as Kyoichi uses Yamada no Orochi Excavation to hit Mira with a long-range slash from behind. She blocks it, and Kyoichi tells her that she might have more combat experience, but he has more skills. And Kyoichi admits he's desperate to save Midori right now. At the same time, Mira witnesses Sugihara knocking out Dewey. She gets distracted and turns her back away from Kyoichi, which allows the Japanese warrior to attack her from behind with Kusanagi. Meanwhile, Huey continues to dodge Mandok's attacks. All of a sudden, the Nox executive pulls out of the battle and Huey finds himself now defending against the combined strength of Kyoichi and Sugihara. He witnesses that Mira has been stabbed, while Dewey is unconscious on the ground. Kyoichi tells Mandok to hold up his end of the deal once they finish Huey, or he and Sugihara will smash him. Mandok tells him he'll stay true to his word, while Huey watches as Mira desperately tries to give Dewey CPR. Not far away, we find out that Dante has just impaled Alexandros with his bare hand. Huey continues to dodge Kyoichi's slashes and Sugihara's strikes, but then the action stops when Kyoichi notices Huey's left arm starting to move. Huey then steps back and presses his left finger on his right forearm. Sugihara tries to take the opportunity to ambush him while he's open, but Kyoichi stops him. Team Japan's leader tells him that something has changed within Huey after he saw him use his arm just now. Meanwhile, Huey walks away from the battle. Back at Alexandros, he concedes defeat after Dante stabs him. However, Dante gets this insane look on his face and starts getting salty with the Macedonian, calling him a moron as he refuses to accept Alexandros' surrender. Instead, he shoots him with a concentrated blast right through the chest before attempting to finish the job with a barehanded slash. Fortunately, Violetta's Griffin arrives just in time to get between Dante and Alexandros. Dante asks her why she didn't help her teammate earlier, to which Violetta replies that Alexandros would have been offended if she interfered. Dante then calls her a fool for trying to fight him. Meanwhile, Mira has lost all hope of reviving Dewey, but she's surprised to find out that Huey has started poking their friend with his fingers. That's right, the Jinmori clone has finally recalled how to perform acupuncture again. Seeing this makes Mira think that Jinmori is actually the one in front of her, but Huey tells her that he's not that guy. He then uses Bongchim Na style, Uiyong Bongchim, to help Mira recover from her wounds, and Huey tells her that Jinmori is still alive. In fact, Huey reveals that he was just in contact with the original Jinmori and that he's hiding somewhere near Oraguk. Huey then returns to face off with Team Japan, activating Bongchim Na style, Ye-Bongchim ×8 before rushing towards them. Kyoichi and Sugihara think Huey is targeting them, but we find out that he's actually zoomed past Team Japan to fight Dante again and rescue the downed members of Team Macedonia. Dante prepares to take out Violetta and her Griffin when Huey hits him with a solid flying knee to the face. Huey asks Dante if he's ready for a good old-fashioned ass-whooping before he proceeds to barrage his opponent with punches and kicks. Huey then finds an opening for him to dash to Alexandros' location and save him. He activates Bongchim Na style Dim Mach Healing to help the Macedonian survive his injuries. Dante tries to backstab him in the middle of this, but Huey fends him off with Renewal Dongbek. He then tosses Alexandros towards Violetta and her Griffin as Team Macedonia escapes to safety. All of a sudden, one of Yamada no Orochi's heads attacks Huey. He dodges it, but it leaves him open for Sugihara to hit him with Badal Choi. Kyoichi uses a technique called Kyoichi Summon, Ground Serpent, to have the giant serpent spring out from right under Huey and eat him. The serpent's head gobbles up Huey, but he escapes when he forces its jaw to open with a powerful kick. On the ground, Dewey wakes up. He and Mira see that Huey is currently locked in a 3v1 battle against Kyoichi, Sugihara, and Dante. Mira tells Dewey how close he was to dying and that it was all thanks to Huey that he is able to survive his fight with Sugihara earlier. Dewey asks her how Huey saved him, and she tells him that Huey was able to use Dim Mach on him. She then gets Dewey up to speed about how Jinmori is still alive, before telling him that she's going to head back to the battlefield to help Huey. Dewey comes with her, telling Mira that he wants to test out a theory he has. In the meantime, Huey notices that he's going to need more power if he's going to defeat the 3 opponents in front of him. So he increases his Bongchim Na style, Ye-Bongchim's output to 16, coupled with his Bongchim Na style painkiller technique. Dewey sees this and remarks that Huey is ready to lay his life on the line to protect them, so he and Mira must do the same. He also lets Mira know that unlike them, Huey will completely cease to exist if his hit points reach 0, which is all the more reason they can't leave their friend behind. All the while, Huey manages to fend off Sugihara and Kyoichi, but Dante teleports behind him and double hammer fists him in mid-air. Huey crashes into the ground, but he's able to jump away from Dante's follow-up kick. Sugihara then chases Huey with a flying kick before Kyoichi traps his leg with a technique named Orochi Snake Trap. With nowhere else to go, he can only brace himself as Sugihara prepares to deliver him the killing blow. As if on cue, Dewey arrives on Red Toma to hit Sugihara with the fist of the Black Turtle and rescue Huey. Nearby, Mira jumps into the air, right behind Kyoichi, and uses Wolwang swordsmanship Galactic Split, which the Kusanagi wielder barely dodges. Daewoo follows up with the kick of the Red Phoenix, and Team Japan is forced to focus their attention on these new challengers. With their new matchup set, Daewoo and Mira tell Huey to go after Dante, so he rushes to the last remaining Team Malta member for a showdown. In the meantime, Daewoo performs a kata while he remembers what Sugihara told him at the public bath the day before. He then remembers his master's words, who told him that all his moves are just a way for Daewoo to unlock Kyokushin Karate's ultimate technique, a move powerful enough to overcome Renewal Taekwondo. Sugihara catches on to what Daewoo's doing, so he uses Badal Choi to punch him in the face before Daewoo can fully enter his ultimate form. Still, Daewoo gets back on his feet and continues to channel more power. This excites Sugihara as he prepares for another clash with his rival. While this is happening, Mira and Kyoichi clash blades. Kyoichi notices that Mira's sword is about to break, while she remembers what Ryu told her, to forget about the rules and simply focus on getting stronger by any means necessary. According to Ryu, all that matters in the end is winning, whether it's by hook or by crook. So, Mira decides to fight dirty. She grabs Kyoichi's fingers while they're locked in a clash and breaks him before sweeping his feet to make him lose balance. After that, she wastes no time and tries to stab Kyoichi, but her sword breaks just as she was about to pull it off. Kyoichi sees this and prepares to strike down Mira. Somewhere else, Seo Hanrang feels that Mira's sword has been broken again. He is so done fixing it, so he sends her Bongseong, her national treasure. Bongseong manifests from the stump left on Mira's broken sword, as she and Daewoo clash with their respective opponents. Meanwhile, Huey's able to rip apart Dante's body, but he heals and regrows his body parts moments later. Dante boasts that he can regenerate all day, to which Huey gives him the ice-cold line, "I can beat you to death all day," in response. Huey stays true to his word and kicks Dante, which knocks him out so hard that he has a flashback to a time when the King of Nox told him he was a failure. Dante snaps out of it and suddenly rips his shirt off to reveal that he's gotten extra swole before lunging at Huey and barraging him with punches. Dante manages to hit Huey with a devastating blow to the body, which makes him realize he can never fill in Jin Mori's shoes regardless of how hard he tries. Dante prepares to punch Mori with a supercharged fist, but Huey blocks it with his bare hand. The impact from the punch is so strong that it tears away a huge chunk of Sonyudo Park, but Huey remains unfazed. He uses Jomong Chim times 24, all the while realizing he doesn't need to be Jin Mori, he just has to be himself. Dante cocks back his fist again, but he stops when Huey gives him an up kick, as he tells his opponent that he'll defeat Dante in his own way. With that, the Monkey King's clone comes up with an all-new move called Mori Huey Original, Complete Gift Package, as he peppers Dante with numerous super-fast strikes. At the same time, Daewoo and Mira are able to beat their respective opponents, while Huey prepares for another clash with Dante when he recovers and activates a third eye on his forehead. Dante tells him again that he can regenerate all day. As for Huey, he remains stone cold and repeats his earlier reply, "I can beat you to death all day." Huey further ups his output by using Jobon Chim times 48 and gives the jacked up Dante a double dose of his complete gift package technique. After that, Huey uses Jin Mori Original, the kick of the Blue Dragon, combined with Mori Huey Original, kicking emoji to summon a dragon and a serpent to absolutely destroy Dante. We then see the three heroes of God of High School as they stand triumphant after having just beaten their respective adversaries. Seconds later, the people of the city driving along Seoul's Sonsan Bridge witness the entirety of Songnyudo Park crumble and sink into the sea after playing host to the Consolation match. In a flashback to just moments ago, right before Songnyudo Park sank, we find out exactly how Daewoo and Mira defeated their opponents. It turns out that Daewoo was able to successfully reach his Kyokushin Karate style's peak, culminating in his activation of a technique called Four Guardians, the Ultimate. It's an ability that's even more powerful than Badal Choi, as it increases Daewoo's power exponentially. In fact, Sugihara couldn't help but compare Daewoo to a literal mountain when their fists met. In the end, Sugihara and Badal Choi are absolutely torn to shreds when Daewoo's force hits them. At the same time that was happening, Mira was able to slip past Koichi's guard and activate her borrowed power to release a godlike slash that's so powerful, it ended up slicing the surrounding coastline of Seoul. In the aftermath of the battle, Huey stands over the dying Dante, as he repeatedly utters that he's the real one. Huey offers him a prayer as he expires. Moments later, Daewoo springs into action to rescue Midori, while Mira attacks their true enemy, Mandoc. Huey uses his acupuncture to heal Midori before leaping into action to help Mira fight the Nox executive. Huey hits Mandoc with a powerful body kick, but he blocks it with his hand. Suddenly, Mira notices that Huey's Na Bon Chim acupuncture buffs have worn off. She fears for the worst, but is surprised to find out that Huey is able to recover when he transforms back into his Monkey King form. Huey then tells Mandoc that he can't wait to put hands on him, as he sends the Nox executive flying with another kick. Huey chases after him, but Mandoc tucks tail and teleports away from him before they can continue their bout, telling Huey that his job here is done. With all threats eliminated, Huey uses Gyeongdaewon to raise Sunyu Park from the sea and rescue all the remaining survivors of the Consolation match. With all his energy spent, Huey returns to his human form, while Daewoo and Mira come to him. He explains that he purposefully held off from transforming into his Monkey King form earlier to time it right and allow him to skip the after effects of Painkiller and Jobon Chim. Otherwise, he would have surely died during the battle. Mira and Dewi celebrate their victory, while Alexandros and Violetta admire the three best friends. The Macedonian warrior then tells Violetta that he's in love with her and asks her hand in marriage. Then say what you want, but Alex has got game because Violetta accepts his proposal. Somewhere nearby, Sugihara regains consciousness and immediately asks where Midori is. Kyoichi tells him she's alright now, and when Sugihara asks him how she was able to recover, he points to Huey and tells his friend that he healed their teammate. We then see Team Korea has set up a triage for all the survivors of the Consolation match, using Huey's acupuncture to help heal their wounds. Sugihara asks Kyoichi why Huey didn't heal Midori the moment she got injured, but Kyoichi informs him that he probably learned acupuncture just now. Upon hearing this, Sugihara can't believe that someone can learn an advanced technique like that in such a short period of time. Meanwhile, Mira is busy handing out water to the other survivors. One of them tries to harass her, which infuriates Mira, so she justifiably breaks the guy's neck. Not long after that, more help arrives when Mujin and a couple of nurses land on Sunyudo Park. Nearby, Sugihara approaches Dewi and the two Kyokushin karate practitioners acknowledge each other's skills. Kyoichi does the same as he praises Mira's skills and the two shake hands after a hard-fought duel. They then hear the voice of the tournament's host coming from a helicopter nearby. They announce the winners of the Consolation match, with Team Korea taking the top spot after overcoming everyone else. But the rules state that there are going to be two finalists participating in the next round, so the other team who will be joining Team Korea, which was selected based on the remaining hit points at the end of the Consolation match, is none other than Team Vatican. Every other team that fought tooth and nail during the contest, like Japan and Macedonia, can't believe how this happened. But Paul reveals that he took advantage of the technicality by playing possum and using his Bible to activate priest skill, healing, and recover their HP while everyone else was busy fighting one another. Paul gloats and deludedly tells everyone that their god chose them to triumph. But even John and Maria know how they were only able to scrape by because of a technicality. Still, Kyoichi takes it all in stride and informs Team Korea that they were planning on withdrawing from the competition anyway in order to allow Midori to recover from her injuries. Alexandros feels the same, as Violetta invites him to make babies with him when they get back home. And with that, the Consolation match ends. Sometime later, Huey, Mira, and Dewi celebrate their win by going to a local joint where they have some traditional Korean snacks. Meanwhile, Mandoc analyzes the DNA and data he stole from Doogie inside his room. He discovers that Huey is a clone and celebrates the fact that he even found information about Dante. Discovering this information, Mandoc asks what the King of Nox is actually trying to be. We then finally get up to speed with Beck, Uma, and Nilpo. It's not going well for the trio, as the king has already defeated Beck and Uma after confronting him in the sacred place. The king asks Uma where the nine-tailed fox is, but she's no weasel. Uma gives him nothing, while she tries to figure out how the king's power works. However, the old man just proves to be too much for the Oxen King, as he slams her into a wall and traps her there. The king then uses his staff, which is revealed to be the Cane of the Sage, a powerful artifact that allows the king to travel to any dimension and locate anything or anyone he wants. He easily spots Ilpio in the stage realm and enters the Kane's portal. Uma and Beck witness this before their very eyes. When the king disappears into the portal, Beck tells the Oxen King that finding Jinmori will be a cinch if they can get their hands on the Cane of the Sage. But there's one problem. They're both subdued. Uma tries to kill Ilpio using the fox speed, desperately warning their friend that the King of Nox is on his way to his location and they should regroup right now. Back at the restaurant, Huey, Dewi, and Mira are surprised to discover that Judge Q is working there part-time. On a more serious note though, we head over to the Sage Realm, which has since been reduced to an empty vacuum after its destruction. Ilpio, in his nine-tailed fox form, treks through the expanse while he looks for Jinmori. To speed up the process, he uses a couple of techniques called Foxering and Becky Hang to help him look for their missing friend. Ilpio then spots one of his fox speeds and attempts to chase after it, but he's interrupted when a portal opens up behind him. A hand emerges from the gateway and magically forces Ilpio to get on his knees. The nine-tailed fox instantly knows who it is, as the king shows himself to Ilpio and tries to force him to come back to his rightful master. Ilpio is having none of it. He doesn't have one inch of respect for the old man after the king disposed of him eons ago. So we get the reveal when Ilpio defies the king and starts calling him by his real name, Oakwang. Oakwang takes offense when Ilpio doesn't call him master and tries to attack the nine-tailed fox with bright purple shards of energy. Ilpio manages to get on his feet and break the energy shards before teleporting behind Oakwang. Ilpio tells him that he's not as strong as he used to be, which means he can kill him right then and there. So Ilpio unleashes his full power and summons his ninth and final tail. Somewhere else, Jinmori meditates on top of Yui, which we find out is standing in an ocean of discarded mechanical creatures. We then get up to speed about what exactly happened to him after the Sage Realm's destruction when he recalls that he passed out and woke up to find himself here. Weirdly enough, he reveals that those same mechanical creatures at the bottom of Yui have been attacking him ever since he arrived here. Suddenly, a small black ball floats around Mori. He greets it and it starts attacking him. Mori plays around with it a bit before hitting it with a lightning bolt and striking it with Yoi. The little ball squares up to Mori, but their fight is interrupted when he senses an energy signature some distance away. The ball flies away as Mori recognizes the energy signature to be Ilpio's, so he rushes to summon Gyeondaewon, put on his Monkey King armor, and hightail it towards the location. But while this is happening, we find out that Ilpio has just fallen after a quick clash with Okwang. The king has managed to slice him up with a katana as the old man taunts the fox for betraying his old master. Make no mistake though, it's not like Okwang got through his confrontation with the nine-tailed fox unscathed. Even he himself admits that he's gotten rusty from old age after he notices he's bleeding and that he wasn't able to kill Ilpio right then and there. So the King of Nox decides to finish the job. He unsheathes his katana and gets ready to skewer the unconscious Ilpio, but Jin Mori arrives right in time to block the shot with Yoi. Okwang recoils from the impact and recognizes that none other than the Monkey King is right in front of him. He expresses his envy about how the Monkey King is able to retain his youth. After which, he connects the dots and concludes that the Jin Mori in the human realm is just one of Mori's copies. Okwang keeps blathering and peacocking in front of Mori, which just angers the Monkey King. So he lunges at the old man and tries to bash him with Yoi, but the king blocks the attack with his sword. Being the sneaky camper that he is, Okwang riles up Mori by pointing out his temper before using a technique called King Throwing a Planet, which is exactly as advertised. A couple of planets approach Mori and threaten to pin him. In the human realm, we found out that Midori is still in South Korea in order to fully recover from her injuries, while Kyoichi and Sugihara have gone home back to Japan. Team Korea takes the shamaness out for a stroll, and Mira thanks her in private for telling her about the prophecy. Mira thinks that they were able to avert Deiwi's death at the Consolation match, but Midori just stays silent after hearing this. Because remember guys, Midori told Mira that Deiwi's going to die in the God of High School tournament. The tournament isn't over yet, so we really can't say that Mira has stopped it from happening. Later, Team Korea bids Midori farewell. Back in the Sage Realm, Okwang and the Monkey King are right in the heat of battle. Mori's able to smash the two plants trying to crush him into shards, which honestly impresses the King of Nox. But Okwang is not someone who is above fighting dirty. To find an opening, he telepathically hurls Ilpio right at the Monkey King and stabs him right through the unconscious nine-tailed fox. Ilpio is impaled right through his chest, and Okwang pulls out his sword before escaping into a portal behind him. To make sure that Mori doesn't follow him, the king also summons a few gigantic creatures to fight Mori and distract him. The giants subdue Ilpio and Mori, then Okwang slowly steps back into his portal, while the Monkey King bursts through one of the giants' grips easily. The King of Nox continues to linger on, as he then commands the giants to self-destruct. The creatures form a circle around the Monkey King and get ready to detonate, as the king finally decides to leave. Meanwhile, the single remaining giant holding Ilpio flies away from the vicinity. A flash of light appears in the middle of the void in the Sage Realm when the giants explode. In the meantime, Mujin debriefs the members of his resistance. He tells them about Nox's true purpose, which is to eliminate all borrowed power users and collect biological energy from them. However, Mujin admits that he's not yet sure what Nox is planning to do with all the energy that they collect. According to him, it's either Nox will offer all this harvested energy to the gods, or there's some as of yet unknown purpose that the cult is planning. After the debrief, Mujin approaches Huey and lets the boy know that he's aware that he isn't the real Jin Mori. He asks him why they didn't tell him the truth, and both Mira and Deiwi interject. They tell Mujin that it was because they couldn't trust him, reminding Mujin of his underhanded tactics with Jagal Tech and what happened when they got back from the Sage Realm. Mujin admits that he's a bit of a weasel before asking the three where the real Jin Mori is. They suddenly hear a voice from the other end of the room telling them that Mori's on some planet in the Sage Realm. We find out that it's Beck. He's badly damaged after escaping from the sacred place, with a bat in one hand and a fox bead tucked under his other arm. He then tells the team that they can locate and bring back Jin Mori with the cane of the sage. There's one thing you'd notice at this point though. Uma isn't with Beck. That's because somewhere else we find out that Okwang had kidnapped the Oxen King and brought her to Nox headquarters. Mandak and the worshippers kneel before their king as he makes his way inside their base. He then asks Mandak where Mujin and his rebels are, to which the Nox executive says that they took the bait. Back at Mujin, he debriefs the resistance again. This time he explains their respective missions. First, they have to gain the cane of the sage. Second, they're going to destroy the green energy-sucking crystals. He tasks the Six, the executives, and Team Korea to go to Nox's headquarters in order to retrieve the cane of the sage from the king. Once they get it in their hands, it's up to them to summon Jin Mori right away and make their ally wreak havoc within the cult's inner sanctum. Judge Q asks Mujin who will be able to perform the ritual to summon Mori, and O'Neill, who still has the body of a toddler, tells him that she can do it. With the cane of the sage, her current power levels are enough to open up a portal and get back the Monkey King. Moving on to their second mission, Mujin reveals that he has struck a deal with the Vatican to ally with his resistance, who are then tasked with destroying the green crystals. Mujin then turns to Huey and then tells him that he and Unya will be at the head of their mission deep within Nox's base. It's up to him to confront the king. With their plan all set, Mugen declares that it's time for a counterattack, saying that he's well aware that their group will inevitably have to face Nox in a full-on war. Back inside Nox's inner sanctum, the king also declares war against his enemies. Bishop R remarks that they're probably going to get busy from here on out, as rows upon rows of worshippers praise Okwang when he passes them. In the meantime, in Yoido, Lee Sujin and Gang Mansok scout a building that's currently under construction. We find out that this same structure will be the stadium for the God of High School tournament. But the real reason that Sujin is scouting it is because she knows that's where Jin Taijin is being held prisoner. Back inside Midori's room at the hospital, she speaks to herself and quietly apologizes to Mira, knowing that Dewi will still die somewhere down the line. Inside the Sage Realm, we find out that Jin Mori is pretty much undamaged after the explosion, but he's lost contact with Ilpio. Suddenly, he sees something glowing purple off in the distance and recognizes that it's one of the Fox beads. Sometime later, near Gangnam Station, we see Huey chasing after Hanra and Seo in the middle of a busy street. Huey realizes that it's not easy having to chase his target while weaving through innocent bystanders, so he teleports right in front of Seo. Huey then tries to hit him with his staff, but the king of the slums uses one of the bystanders as a human shield, which forces Huey to withdraw his attack. Seo then takes advantage and uses a technique called National Labor Union, Puma vs. 13 Serpent, to extend his own staff and hit Huey a few times. Passers-by are shocked that there's a fight happening in the middle of the streets, as Seo points his weapon right in front of Huey. The leader of the Homeless Union praises Huey's defense, but he sneakily taps his hand, which causes the other end of his staff to rebound and hit Huey in the chin by surprise. Afterwards, Seo clowns Huey and starts running away again. We then see Mira watching all this unfold from a vantage point nearby. A flashback reveals that this whole encounter is part of Huey's training, as Mugen tells him and Mira that they need to put in extra work in order to up their game and successfully fulfill their mission to steal the cane of the sage from the king. According to him, Mira has so much untapped potential and she's first in line to be their team's most improved player. On the other hand, Huey possesses the greatest weapon ever in his hands, but has no idea how to use it. To conduct this special training, Mugen called on Seo to act as their coach. Seo then walked into the room and was amused at how much Huey resembled the original Jin Mori. He asked Huey why he should teach him the art of Bongsul, aka the Shaolin staff, considering that he already did that with the original Jin Mori and it didn't take. Huey then told him that the reason the original Monkey King didn't practice Bongsul so much was because he was already too overpowered. Huey then admitted that he felt the same way. After hearing that, Seo made him know that he was well aware of the gap between his and the Monkey King's power. Still, he started to give Huey a lesson when he threatened to hit him with his staff. Huey didn't dodge, and told Seo that it's because he didn't need to, all thanks to his Monkey King armor. But Seo humbled Huey when he applied a bit of his inner energy to his staff and successfully thwacked Huey a couple of times before his Monkey King armor could manifest. Huey fell to the ground, as Seo told him that the true essence of Bongsul is to have a weapon that can attack and defend at the same time. In the present, Mira sees that Seo has just been running away from Huey this whole time, but on the ground we find that Huey is exhausted from the chase. He thinks that it would have been much easier to defeat Seo if he could use his lightning bolts, but Huey is worried that it would hurt innocent bystanders as well. Seo then gives Huey a list of his weaknesses. First, he remarks that Huey becomes pretty much useless if his opponent does as he does, run away. That is to say, Huey needs to work on his stamina and endurance. Second, Seo notes that Huey becomes ineffective in fights set in places where there's a crowd of innocent bystanders around, given that most of his techniques target a wide area. So he needs to get better at precisely controlling his abilities. Finally, Seo sees Huey turn back to his human form, which prompts him to tell Huey that it's his third weakness. According to him, Huey's monkey form doesn't last too long. It would be too easy for any enemy to keep running away from him until he exhausts himself, and then beat him while he's in his human form. But then, Huey reveals that he purposefully made Seo think that he's lost his Monkey King powers earlier, as he transforms back and prepares to attack Seo again. Seeing this, the King of the Slums weaves around the innocent bystanders again and uses them as human shields. However, he's taken by surprise when he discovers Huey using his own Puma vs. 13 Serpent technique against him. Huey's staff bypasses the innocent civilians on its way to hit Seo, which forces him to jump away from the crowd to dodge it. Then, Huey teleports right behind Seo and grabs the man before zooming away on Gyeon Do-woon and dragging Seo to a secluded battlefield. There, Huey declares that he has Seo right where he wants him. Mira arrives in the area to continue analyzing their bout. Seo then concedes defeat, telling Huey that he doesn't stand a chance against him in a one-on-one fight and applauding the boy's strategy. But it turns out Seo is just bluffing, as he whacks Huey with his staff and tells him about his fourth weakness, that his lack of experience makes him vulnerable to cheap tricks. Huey manages to graze Seo's cheek with Yui, and the boy loses his patience with the man. Seo notices that Huey has gotten mad, so he turns to Mira and tells her to keep watching. Seo then removes his coat and uses a technique named 108 Agonies, which summons an entire arsenal of national treasures around him. Mira does as she's told, and not long after that, we see that Huey has defeated Seo. The man admits defeat, for real this time. Mira can't help but be impressed that even though Seo lost, he was able to deal significant damage to Huey. And even though Huey knows he's won, he realizes that Seo was able to compensate for the gap in his strength with experience and tactics. The King of the Slums then explains that these two qualities are more than enough to help anyone narrow gaps in strength. Still, Seo admits that even he has a long way to go, considering that he just lost to a clone of the Monkey King. He then instructs Mira to start using other weapons starting today. According to Seo, she has to explore her options in order to fully know if the sword is really the perfect weapon for her. Huey then asks Seo to teach him too. He agrees and stretches out his hand to let Huey help him get on his feet. However, Huey pulls away, knowing that this might be another trick. Seo applauds him for learning from his mistakes before telling Huey that he should focus on micro-control, the ability to wield his powers precisely. To do that, Seo instructs Huey to stop using any of his other abilities for now and instead focus on using Yui alone. And from there, their special training formally begins. Back inside Okwang's throne room, Mandak tells their leader that they have to prepare to fight against Huey, considering that he's immensely powerful in spite of being just a copy of the original Jinmori. According to the Nox executive, he has a couple of theories about how the Monkey King's duplication ability works. One, it might be the case that his combat abilities decrease as more copies of himself are made. If this were the case, Mandak believes Nox stands a chance against the Monkey King. However, his second theory states that it's possible that the Monkey King's power doesn't get distributed among his clones, which means that each one has the potential to be as powerful as the original. If this is true, Mandak believes that their cult will definitely lose the war. Mandak then tells the king that there might be a way for them to defeat the Monkey King with the help of the DNA samples and data he stole from Dr. Doogie. The king accepts Mandak's proposal to explore more about the Monkey King's DNA and asks Mandak if he knows anything besides these DNA samples. Mandak lies and tells the king that he doesn't. Though remember guys, Mandak has data about the Dante clones as well. The king believes him and tells Mandak to bring the DNA samples to his chambers. The meeting ends as the old man walks to his inner sanctum, all the while feeling the aftereffects of his bouts with the nine-tailed fox and the Oxen King, which has currently left him injured. Back inside the Sage Realm, Jinmori finally catches the Foxbee and tries to communicate with whoever is on the other end of the line, but no one's answering. So Mori instead chooses to prioritize rescuing Ilpio. He continues to chase the giant creature holding his friend until they reach the same planet where Mori hung out after the Sage Realm's destruction. He loses Ilpio's energy signature and desperately asks one of the mechanical creatures on the ground if they saw a white giant pass by. The creature tells him that the giant went to a skyscraper, and Mori discovers that it's submerged underneath an ocean-deep pool within the planet. The mechanical creature tries to scare Mori by telling him that the building he plans on going to has 7,000 floors, with each one housing a gigantic titan. According to the little guy, the last 7 floors of the building are where he'll find the masters of this realm. The mechanical creature continues to talk and scare Mori, but the Monkey King stops listening and instead uses Yoi to speed things up. That is to say, he destroyed the building's 9,993 floors and only left the last 7 standing. The little guy then realizes that his plan to scare off Mori didn't work and bids the Monkey King a safe trip. But Mori grabs the mechanical creature as he jumps through the hole deep within the planet to use the little guy as a guide. There, a bunch of giant monsters try to attack Mori, but he easily beats them on his way to look for Ilpio. Somewhere else, Mujin walks around the city and is absolutely bitter about how Nox was able to take control so after the city's destruction. He arrives at his old office and asks himself how it all came to this. He then tries to check out the place by wearing a poor disguise, which the picketers immediately spot. So they pelt Mujin with a frozen egg right in the face and chase after him. Mujin eventually loses them, but this just makes him more depressed, especially considering that he's a member of the Six. But he forgets his woes when Kim Dusik arrives. We then find out that they have a meeting today, as Mujin is due to pay for his loan's monthly interest from Kim Financial. He pays the man and offers Dusik to fully align himself with Mujin in exchange for billions of dollars that he got from the JG Group and the Ruxeong Corporation. Dusik, of course, doesn't hide his interest in being a couple $1 billion richer, but he doesn't believe Mujin has the money. So the loan shark tells Mujin to show him the money and then they'll talk. Dusik walks away with his cronies and Mujin guesses that he's probably not interested in getting richer. Back inside Nox headquarters, worshippers admire Mandak for being the model cultist that they all aspire to be. Aside from performing his duties as Nox's poster boy in public, the executive is the most devout member of the organization, as we find out that he's been praying inside their sanctuary for 3 days. Mandak's prayer is only interrupted when a worshipper informs him that the other higher-ups are ready for their meeting. Shortly after, Mandak meets with Bishops Amigo de Romario, Tak-Tun Xiaochen, and R, and the king. He goes on a whole rant about how corrupt humanity has become and proposes a totally bonkers solution: to exterminate each and every human on Earth and only leave Nox as true believers alive. The king refuses his proposal, telling Mandak that humans are still of use to their organization. But Mandak argues that the king has become soft. The other bishops take offense to this, but the king takes it all in stride. In fact, the old man appreciates Mandak's commitment to Nox's crazy ideals. Mandak explains that allowing humans to keep using borrowed power will ultimately undermine their god's authority. So the only solution to that is to kill each and every one of them. Bishop Romario thinks Mandog is being too harsh, but the king lets it slide because he knows that Mandog is just super into Nox. Still, the king explains that he can't proceed with Mandog's plan, and it's not because he likes humans, it's because there's too much red tape involved in it. To proceed with Mandog's proposal, they have to get the approval of all the other gods from the heavenly realm, which is a hassle. But the king does know that there's a good chance the gods will sign off on this, especially after they found out about the deaths of the princes of Natak. Instead, the king proposes that they proceed with their original plan, to create an army of borrowed power users and let them go to war against Mugen's resistance. If that fails, then the king expresses his willingness to proceed with Mandog's so-called rapture and destroy humanity. Somewhere else, Judge O has infiltrated the God of High School Tournament's arena. She maps out the specific areas within the building and is able to locate the king's chambers. All of a sudden, Nox priest Hosek Jang catches her snooping around. Judge O knows she's busted, but Jang tells her that he doesn't plan on ratting her out. But he wants to see Red, Judge O's dragon. Judge O replies by summoning Red and attempting to hightail it out of there, but her powers are sapped the moment she uses her borrowed power, which makes Judge O realize that the entire building is made up of the same crystal Nox uses to gather energy. The building sucks off all her energy and she passes out, as Jang attempts to take her out. His attack doesn't land, as someone swoops in and rescues Judge O, who is revealed to be none other than former bishop and ITF Taekwondo master Lee Soo-jin. Judge O tries to activate her borrowed power even while weakened. Only a spark forms in front of her, but it's enough for her to learn that at least Nox's crystal can only sap energy of a person and not their borrowed power itself. Jang spots Soo-jin and calls her a traitor. Gang Man-suk then tries to sucker punch the priest with a flying kick from behind, but Jang dodges it. He mocks Man-suk, but Soo-jin backs him up and kicks the priest. He blocks it, but it's enough for Soo-jin to use her abilities and seal away Jang's power. She then barrages Jang with a sequence of ITF Taekwondo moves, such as Baekdu and K9 kick. Jang tries to fight back, but his hand-to-hand combat skills are far inferior to Soo-jin, as she continues to kick him around. Her combo is only broken when she feels something slash her all of a sudden. She turns to see that Jang is transformed into a black dragon, but he ends up getting instantly dunked on again when Soo-jin transforms into her Pandora form and uses a technique called Nightmare to rain down swords on Jang. Jang is taken out, but Soo-jin then hears someone clapping and praising her from behind. She immediately recognizes it as Bishop Xiao Chen, and she greets the cultist with a sidekick. Xiao Chen throws a fireball at her, but Soo-jin dodges it. The wielder of Pandora's power then uses Power Seal right away, noting that Xiao Chen is a dangerous opponent. It works, and she follows it up with some classic close-quarters combat. Soo-jin and Xiao Chen clash, and the bishop manages to get the better of Soo-jin when she traps her in a wrist lock. Xiao Chen then takes off her robe to reveal the face of a pretty woman with blonde hair. She tells Soo-jin to repent her sins and come back to Nox, but the ex-Nox bishop is not hearing any of it. So Soo-jin uses Pandora Disease to free herself from Xiao Chen and they make their retreat. Moments later, Jang is surprised to discover that he's still alive. He turns to see Xiao Chen and is absolutely shocked when he lays his eyes on her, thinking to himself that Bishop Xiao Chen looks terrifying when she's angry. Back in the Sage Realm, Mori continues to beat the giant monsters. He then asks his little companion why the giants keep following them, and the creature reveals that the giants are both curious about Mori and in awe of him. The little guy then explains that these giants are called Titans, creatures who tried to go down to the lowest floors of the building to meet the owners of their world but ultimately failed to pass the test. By test, the little guy means that you have to defeat a powerful creature called a Gatekeeper in order to start your journey through the lower floors. We then find out that the Titans aren't hostile in the first place. They're actually Jin Mori's fanboys who want nothing else than to watch the Monkey King fight the Gatekeeper. In fact, they all start cheering when Mori gives them permission to witness the upcoming bout. According to Mori, watching fights is the most interesting thing to do in this world, as he and his newfound fan club rejoice. Eventually, they all reach the Gatekeeper, and Mori is surprised to find out that he's the same size as a regular person. He then asks the Gatekeeper if he can just let him pass, and the creature's head suddenly lights up in front of the Monkey King. Still, the Gatekeeper remains in place, not moving so much as an inch. Mori tries to ask again if he saw Ilpio and the other gigantic creature pass through, but he gets nothing from the Gatekeeper. While all this is happening, one of the Titans who came with Mori remembers a time when it arrived in front of the Gatekeeper. Back then, the creature demanded that the gate be opened for it, but as with Mori, the Guardian of the lower floors ignored it. In response, the Titan attacked the Gatekeeper with a punch, but it ended up badly, because a second later, it found that the Gatekeeper was able to slice up its entire forearm before he proceeded to slice up all of the Titan's limbs. In the present, Mori's little companion remarks at how all the Titans are trembling in fear. Mori, on the other hand, shouts at the Gatekeeper to ask if he can pass through. This finally rouses the Guardian as he hits the Monkey King with a couple of punches. The Titans are shocked to find that the Gatekeeper made the first move, as Mori uses Yoi to strike the creature. He misses when his opponent teleports behind him and then proceeds to attack Mori. The Monkey King continues to swing around his magical staff, but the Gatekeeper just keeps on avoiding his strikes. Then he finds a crack in his opponent's defense and smacks Mori in the face with a cracking punch before barraging him with successive strikes that makes the Titans think the Monkey King is done for. After that, the Gatekeeper gets ready to stab Mori with his 2 black spears, but the Monkey King finds an opening and manages to chop off 2 of the Gatekeeper's 4 arms. The Titans see this and can't believe their eyes. Meanwhile, Mori witnesses it when the tubes connected to the Gatekeeper's head detach and fall to the ground. Steam comes out of the back of the Gatekeeper's head as he looms over the Monkey King and lets out a loud roar before moving around the battlefield at supersonic speed. One of the Titans tells the little mechanical companion that the cables attached to his back were used as stabilizers to control its rage. Now that they're gone, the Gatekeeper has entered a wild berserker state, and the only way for it to end is if the Gatekeeper eats his opponent. In the middle of the battlefield, the crazed Gatekeeper fails to get in a good shot when Mori plants Yui in the ground and causes a tremor all around the place. This scares everyone inside the deep cavern, including the Gatekeeper. Mori notices that Yui is too heavy for this place, so he commands it to become lighter. He then challenges the Gatekeeper to another clash, but the Guardian suddenly kneels and concedes defeat. He then tells the Monkey King that he'll open the gate. Mori's confused, but he accepts the win. Meanwhile, his little companion and the rest of the Titans are absolutely shocked that the Gatekeeper would willingly open the gates for Mori. According to the little guy, this has never happened before, especially the fact that the Gatekeeper admitted defeat. He looks at Mori a short distance away and wonders if the Monkey King is as strong as the 7 owners of the realm, or maybe even more. Back in the human realm, Huey trains in the art of Bongsul using Yui. He picks up a large stone slab from the ground and uses a technique called NLU Bongsul style, Pumaverse 17 Dog Sour, to smash it to bits. Seo oversees his training and mentions that Huey is learning too fast. In fact, he admits to the boy that it took him 3 years to master the Dog Sour technique, but Huey only needed a week. Seo asks the boy how he feels, and Huey tells him that he can appreciate how amazing Bongsul is, as it proves to be a versatile martial art. Suddenly, Seo tests Huey and surprises him with a strike from his own staff. Huey blocks it with Yui and they get into a quick clash. Seo stops and tells him to keep up the good work, but not before sneaking in one last hit on Huey when he bends his staff and makes it wrap around the boy. Seo then tells Huey that he still has a long way ahead of him before moving on to check on his other student, Mira. We find that the Moonlight Sword style user has been training hard with a variety of new weapons. Now, if you're thinking that only Huey and Mira are putting in some work, then you'd be mistaken, friends, because Daewee is hunkered down at home to further hone his Kyokushin karate. In fact, we find out that Mugen even offered to take Daewee under his wing, but he refused. In the end, Daewee decided to train alone and focus on getting accustomed to fighting with his visual handicap. After one of his sessions, Daewee hears a voice greet him from inside the Han residence. He turns to see that the King of Nox has paid him another visit. They then have another game of Tangyi, Korean chess, where we see that the king is determined to avenge his loss from the previous match. Okwang informs Daewee that he recently encountered their old friend, referring to Jin Mori. He knows that the old man is telling the truth, so Daewee asks how the Monkey King is doing. Okwang tells him that he's doing just fine and is stronger than ever. Daewee checkmates the king in the round of Tangyi, but the old man arrogantly says that it's actually Daewee who has lost this game. All the while, Okwang goes on another patronizing speech about how young people think they see everything before telling Daewee that he's allowing the boy to win even though he checkmated him. But Daewee sees the king move the piece on the Tangyi board and immediately checkmates the king again, which infuriates the old man so much that he ends up wrecking their game board. The king bids his leave, but Dae Young invites him for a meal. And boy, what a fussy old man Okwang is. The geezer complains about Dae Young's cooking before finally deciding to leave the Han residence. Daewee notices that the old man has left the cane of the sage behind. He thinks for a second about what to do, but he ultimately decides to give it back to the old man, knowing that Okwang is testing him. Okwang takes back his cane and tells Daewee that this is why he doesn't hate the boy. As a reward, he gives him a warning. He tells Daewee to definitely stay out of the oncoming war because he'll surely die if he takes part in it. In a flashback, we find out how exactly Beck was able to escape from the sacred place. It's revealed that he and Uma fought the old man for a second time after Okwang returned from the Sage Realm. At the time, Okwang knew he couldn't take on the Oxen King and Beck at the same time, so he chose to target Uma and subdue her instead. Knowing that she couldn't escape, Uma then told Beck to go back to base and tell everyone about the Cane of the Sage. Okwang caught on to this and tried to assassinate Beck before he could leave, but Uma rushed the old man in order to give her partner a chance to escape. Uma let out a large roar and Beck passed out. The next thing he knew, he was all alone inside the sacred place with the fox speed. In the present, Beck is recovering at a hospital as he recounts all of this to Team Korea. Huey figures out that the reason he was able to regain his powers was because of the portal that the king opened to the Sage Realm, which shortened the distance between him and the original Jin Mori, allowing him to reconnect to the source of his powers. With this bit of information, Team Korea is able to conclude that Okwang's powers aren't based on telepathy or magic. The old man actually has control over the forces of gravity. The topic changes when Daewee notices that Mira is carrying an entire armory's worth of weapons with her, as he remarks that she's gotten stronger. Sometime later, Mugen gathers the resistance forces and debriefs them about the current status of their plan. He reveals that the Vatican forces have successfully collected 70% of Nox's energy crystal. Now they should focus on getting their hands on the Cane of the Sage. To do this, Mugen explains that the God of High School's new tournament stadium is built right on top of Nox's headquarters. He then informs them that it's made of the same energy stones before allowing Judge O to debrief them about the rest. Judge O then lets everyone know that the entire stadium has the ability to sap their energy, which will then make them lose their strength. But she also informs them about her discovery, that the energy crystal can only suck off your energy, but it can't remove your borrowed power. She gets asked how she was able to escape the stadium, and Judge O reveals that Sujin rescued her. She then shows everyone the photos she took while scouting the area. There are 2 points of interest within the stadium. First, there's the center control room, which controls the other areas in the stadium, and then there's the King's Chamber where Okwang is scheduled to watch the tournament's final match. Mugen then explains that their plan is simple. They're going to split into 2 teams, with Team A tasked with taking over the control room, while Team B retrieves the Cane of the Sage from the King's Chamber. Dewey asks if rescuing Jin Tai-jin is part of Mugen's plan, but he brushes off the question and instead tells the Resistance that their priority is summoning Jin Mori in the middle of the stadium to wreak havoc on Nox. Simply put, he has no time and interest in saving Tai-jin. Mugen then tells Huey that their plan to steal the cane all hinges on him defeating the old man, and once they get it, Uni will open up a portal to get back Jin Mori from the Sage Realm. Mugen warns everyone that this mission only has a success rate of about 2 to 30% and that some of them might even die during the mission. So he gives the Resistance one last chance to back out before they proceed with their plan in a few days. Inside the Sage Realm, the Gatekeeper opens a portal that leads to the lower levels of the structure. Mori is just about to enter it when he notices the stab wound he got from Okwang earlier. This makes him worry more about Ilpio, since he took a much graver wound than Mori did. Suddenly, the fox beat in his possession suddenly shows him what's going on in the human world, as Mugen explains his plan to Team Korea. Mori starts to panic and desperately calls out to Huey when he hears Mugen on the other end telling his clone to face off against the old man. Back at the meeting, Mugen asks Team Korea who they want to choose as their leader. Both Mira and Huey decide that Dewey's the man for the job, and he reluctantly accepts the position. After the meeting, Huey walks back home to his, or should we say, Mori's apartment. He worries that he might vanish upon Mori Jin's return from the Sage Realm. But Huey's thoughts are interrupted when he finds that the apartment has been vandalized. We then discovered that a lot of people have labeled Team Korea as public enemies after the Consolation match because of how they wrecked Sunyudo Park. The same happens to Mira's house, but the Han residence is safe from getting defiled because Dare Young has been guarding its perimeter. In any case, Huey cleans up the apartment and finds a letter from his high school, which reminds him that he, Daewee, and Mira are still students who have to go to school. Huey visits their school the next day to find out that, unlike the rest of Seoul, the other students of the establishment idolize him as a celebrity. Huey becomes Mr. Popular. And somewhere in a corner, one student tells a transfer student named Samuel that Jin Mori used to be the #1 fighter in their school before he arrived. We then get a refreshing glimpse at Team Korea actually doing things a normal high schooler would do. They take tests, and Huey surprisingly gets good grades, and we even get a hilarious short saga centered around football when one of Huey's classmates drafts him into their class's team to compete in the intramural games. Huey agrees to the proposal when he hears that he can get half of the prize money from the soccer tournament and use it to further renovate Mori's apartment. From there, Huey carries his class's football team to the semi-finals where they face off against Daewee's team. Mira even tries to join in by disguising herself with a mustache, but she's booted off the pitch instantly when the other players find out she's a girl. Team Mori and Team Daewee end up in a draw. After that, Team Daewee loses to another class called Team Villain, which is then revealed to be coached by Mira after the class paid her off. So, Huey performs acupuncture to paralyze her, while Daewee kidnaps Mira and traps her inside the school gym until the intramural games are over. Daewee then takes his talents to Team Mori to duke it out against Team Villain in the finals. They end up losing the game due to the Team Villain's flawless execution of pure football instead of individual play, and neither of the two heroes get the prize money. That evening, we find out that Mira has been left inside the gym. She frees herself from her restraints, and Daewee arrives to come and fetch her. The two then share a nice moment, as Daewee treats Mira to some tteokbokki. Meanwhile, Huey finally remembers about Mira and rushes off to go to the gymnasium. However, the transfer student, Samuel, appears in front of him and hits Huey with a knockout strike. We then find out that Samuel is a borrowed power user who possesses the demigod Hercules, as he tells the unconscious Huey that he won't even get to have a second match at the God of High School World Tournament. Somewhere else, Judge Q informs Mugen that he plans on sitting out the upcoming war with Nox when he gets all insecure about how Bishop R has become much stronger than he is. Q asks Mugen how he can be as strong as him, but Mugen teases the judge and tells him that he was born this way, so there's no way Q can catch up. But on a more serious note, Mugen tells Q that their power levels aren't that far off from each other. It's just that Q doesn't know Mugen's true attributes. Mugen then teaches Q about knowing your opponent and using the right technique at the right moment is the key to being a borrowed power user. He then correctly guesses that Q wants to sit out the war because of Bishop R. Mujin hears this and tells Q that there might be a way for him to easily surpass R depending on how determined he is to do it. That is to say, this will come at a cost. Somewhere else, Bishop R has a dream about his childhood, where we find out that Mujin rescued him back when he was a kid. During this encounter, Mujin told the young R that he could return the favor throughout his entire life. Bishop R suddenly wakes up as we see him strapped to an IV drip. He gets dressed, and Mandoc calls him by his real name, Ultio. Mandoc then thanks R for all the data he's given them, which has allowed Nox to adjust their TAM transfusion more efficiently. Somewhere else inside Nox's headquarters, Okwang has whipped up a fresh new batch of Dante clones and asks them who will end up being given the title Dante. Back inside the Resistance's base, Mujin tells Q that he must kill R. To do that, he has to forget about their history and just focus on eliminating his enemy. Mujin then tells Q that if he agrees to do this, he'll show him how to gain great power. While this is happening, Samuel visits his teammates and reports that he met someone from the Consolation match, referring to Huey. His teammate, Blit, scolds Samuel for going off on his own and the two get into a fight. Their third teammate, an as yet unnamed woman with red hair, stops the fight and tells him to calm down. We then discover that they're in a meeting with all the other teams participating in the God of High School World Tournament. Team France's leader, Andre, asks Samuel how strong Team Korea is, and Samuel tells him that they suck. We also get introduced to new characters and teams here, such as Mujahideen and Team South Africa, with Hawk and Team America, and Saladin and Team Iran. We then find out that Samuel is actually the leader of Team Argentina, and this whole meeting was all to determine whether Team Korea, especially Huey, would be a threat to any of them during the upcoming tournament. Not long after that, Mira, Dewi, and Huey walk into the newly built World Tournament Stadium amidst boos from the crowd. Dewi tells his team to pay no attention to and focus on their mission, because as of now, everyone in here is their enemy. With that, the host of the God of High School World Tournament excitedly announces the beginning of the contest. And that, guys, is the Consolation match and pre-World Tournament arcs of God of High School. Given how action-packed these opening chapters to the World Competition Mega Arc are, we can only imagine that things will only ramp up from here on out. So, what did you think about the God of High School story so far? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate it, and it goes a long way in helping us make more of these videos for you. Oh, and turn on that notification bell to be the first to see the next God of High School video we're cooking. We're going to tell you all about the World Tournament arc, and it's going to be an absolute banger. Again, thank you guys for sticking with us, and we hope you loved this video. We'll catch you soon.